761. The road to immortality is cut off. It's like how Celestial Venerable of law transmission defied the principles of cultivation, making it impossible for any cultivator in the world to surpass him. Open black lens bracket Celestial Venerable of rebirth close black lens bracket, defying the principles of life and death. And once a cultivator has been revived by him, they will never be able to attain the longevity realm. Shu Bai seemed to understand something. However, for the vast majority of cultivators in the world, the longevity realm is something they cannot even dream of. Even if they knew about this, they probably wouldn't care too much. Suddenly, Shu Bai seemed to remember something and frowned slightly. He calculated what would happen to the Xuanwang world in the years to come. Originally, in the Xuanwang world, cultivators were born and nurtured by heaven and earth, naturally born and naturally perished. As time went on, although the probability was extremely low, new celestial venerables of longevity would always be born every once in a while. Even if this time interval was thousands or 10,000 years. But now, with the existence of the Rebirth Palace, the revived cultivators are gradually occupying the places of naturally born cultivators. This is causing the number of cultivators born and nurtured by heaven and earth to decrease. And the already extremely low probability of attaining the longevity realm will eventually become even rarer. Until no new longevity realm cultivators are born in the world. Shu Bai touched his chin, the Xuanwang extermination plan, paving his own road, and then making it impossible for anyone else to follow. This kind of domineering behavior is quite similar to the style of the Celestial Venerable of law transmission. However, for the existing Celestial Venerables of longevity, it is actually a good thing. This is probably why the members of the Five Elders Council have not come forward to stop the Celestial Venerable of rebirth. After all, not all small worlds have such terrifying figures like the white-browed elder sitting in charge. The minor setbacks encountered by the Immortal Alliance cultivators during their conquests were quickly forgotten. Occasionally, when they encountered small worlds that fiercely resisted, they quickly suppressed them with the help of their companions. 50, 100, 136. The number of small worlds being explored increased rapidly. Shu Bai used the heavenly profound treasure mirror to collect images of these small worlds being conquered and their current situations. Seeing that the time was almost up, he agreed with Lu San to return to the Imperial Small World. Shielding the heavenly profound treasure mirror's perception, the two of them entered one after another and met in the dark void. Having already informed the other party of the precautions, Lu San also changed his appearance. The two of them flew continuously in the void. It's actually a branch of the beast-controlling sect, truly quite rare. Arriving outside the empire, divine sense swept downwards. Seeing the countless, strange and bizarre beasts, Lu San couldn't help but praise. It's just a branch of the beast-controlling sect. The true inheritors of the beast-controlling sect seem to be hiding in the spirit void world now. After thousands of years, I wonder what they've become. Shu Bai said casually through voice transmission. Spirit void world, I seem to have heard of it somewhere. Lu San was slightly stunned. After a long while, Lu San shook his head slightly. Strange, I can't seem to remember. Could it be that I'm already this old? It doesn't matter, now that the Myriad Immortals Alliance is sweeping across the realms, they will be exposed sooner or later. Does Elder Lu have any acquaintances within the beast-controlling sect back then? Shu Bai asked. I only heard of their names, there wasn't any interaction. Lu San seemed to be preoccupied with his lost memories, answering absent-mindedly. His mind was still thinking about where that trace of impression came from. Just at that moment, Li Fan within the Longevity Valley suddenly felt a burst of unease. It had been a long time since this had happened, and Li Fan didn't dare to be careless. Stopping the act of feeding the dissolving butterfly with array data, his expression was solemn, and the crystallized stone of transformation in his mind operated to the extreme, thinking about the source of this sense of crisis. Soon after, he obtained a possible answer. As a Dao integration expert, Lu San shouldn't be unable to remember things that happened to him. Even if he couldn't recall something occasionally, after a search with his divine sense, he should definitely be able to remember it. But this kind of thing had actually happened. It's because the memories related to the spirit void world in his mind have been modified. Being able to modify the divine sense of a Dao integration expert silently, only a longevity realm cultivator could do it. Lu San had never come into contact with longevity realm experts in the first half of his life. So the problem lies in the open black lens bracket fruit of true temptation close black lens bracket that I used on him back then. Thinking about the memory modification content of Lu San back then, Li Fan suddenly understood. The spirit void world should be something he and the true young sect master of the Medicine King sect, Lu Yihang, mentioned in conversation. To be safe, Li Fan didn't kill Lu Yihang back then. Instead, he hid him in an inconspicuous room within the Medicine King True Cauldron, which only Li Fan himself could open. Lu Yihang was still asleep in the great dream of spring and autumn formation. At this moment, the three elders of the Medicine King sect were not present, and Li Fan had no scruples in his actions. He released him from the Medicine King True Cauldron, and then brought him into his own cave abode. Without the effects of the formation, Lu Yihang slowly woke up. But instantly, he discovered that his situation was not right. Uncontrollable, unable to even utter a cry. His expression changed drastically, wanting to struggle but powerless to turn the tide. Within his own cave abode, Li Fan didn't even need his main body to show up to suppress him. Using the soul-searching technique, Li Fan didn't spend much effort finding information about the spirit void world from his mind. There was nothing special, it was just that Lu Yihang had occasionally seen the name of this world when reading ancient books. Because within the spirit void world, there was a plant called spirit void grass, which was an essential ingredient for refining the open black lens bracket spirit nourishing pill close black lens bracket. So Lu Yihang had once consulted Lu San about it. Perhaps the person involved had already forgotten about it, but it caused an unexpected disaster thousands of years later. Originally, he could have slept for a few more decades in the great dream of spring and autumn formation. Having figured out the whole story, Li Fan didn't think much of his actions. He still threw him into the cave abode to suppress him, while his main body returned to the Medicine King Valley. His clone Shubai interrupted Lu San's thoughts. I remembered. I seem to have read a secret record back then, which recorded the method of refining the spirit-nourishing pill. One of the main ingredients, spirit void grass, seems to grow within the spirit void world. I asked Elder Lu about it back then. Hearing this, Lu San's expression was first a little confused. Then he slapped his head. Look at my memory, there was such a thing. I almost forgot about it. Having resolved the doubts in his mind, Lu San once again focused his attention on the imperial small world below. Together with Shu Bai, they flew to the front of the high tower palace. The powerful divine sense of a Dao integration expert had already alarmed Xiao Qing. She, the imperial daughter, and another woman in red flew forward to greet them. This is Elder Lu of our union, Shu Bai said solemnly, introducing him. The three of them bowed to Lu San. Greetings, senior. 762. Strong people are proof. With cultivators at the Changsheng realm absent, those at the Dao integration stage were the strongest visible in the world. This was true for the Xuanwang realm, let alone this small world of the empire. Qing and Hong were all right, they had lived long enough. In their memories, they had seen Dao integration cultivators many years ago when they were still in the beast-controlling sect. But the imperial daughter didn't fare so well. Even after accepting the memories of successive imperial emperors, she only had a vague impression of the power of the legendary Dao integration cultivators. After all, the imperial daughter was just a mortal. Faced with the unintentional pressure from Lu San, which felt like mountains and seas, the imperial daughter's face was pale, and she could barely breathe. The three bowed, but Lu San didn't respond, remaining silent. Qing and Hong immediately felt uneasy. Honestly, before today, the two had been somewhat skeptical about the so-called Multiverse United Association. After all, from beginning to end, only one person had been responsible for contacting them from this Multiverse United Association. Moreover, the cultivation level of the contact person wasn't very high. Just a nascent soul realm cultivator, commonly seen everywhere in the Xuanwang realm. But today, the moment they personally saw the Dao integration cultivator, the doubts in their hearts vanished. Because strength is the best proof. It was impossible for a Dao integration grand cultivator to come and scam them, right? The other party could destroy the empire with a wave of their hand. There was no reason to do so. Various thoughts flashed through their minds in an instant, and the attitude of the three from the empire became more respectful. Seeing that the atmosphere was right, Lu San finally hummed lightly and nodded slightly. Let's go, take me to see the things you reported. Shu Bai then chimed in. The Myriad Immortals Alliance's offensive is becoming more and more rapid, Elder Lu doesn't have much time to waste. The imperial daughter nodded quickly, leading them to an underground secret room in the high tower palace. The secret room was extremely spacious. A void weft and warp alignment device, thousands of different types of spirit crystal essence, and a huge melting furnace were already prepared here. Lu San first looked at the alignment device, then suddenly asked, if one knows the coordinates of a certain world relative to the Xuanwang realm, can this alignment device be used to determine the location of that world in the void? Little Qing was stunned at first, then her face revealed a look of horror. Because she realized that the world that this elder Lu was talking about was not referring to the small world of Xuanwang, but referring to another immortal cultivation world of the same level as the Xuanwang realm. Her evaluation of the Multiverse United Association suddenly rose another level in her heart. After thinking for a moment, Little Qing shook her head and told the truth. Due to the influence of the immortal ruins, the space-time around the Xuanwang realm has become distorted. If there is only simple coordinate data, I am afraid that even if one can escape the attraction of the immortal ruins, they will misidentify the direction halfway. However, if the destination coordinates are set in advance, space-time correction can be performed while constantly moving forward. Theoretically speaking, it is entirely possible to safely reach the coordinate location, Little Qing quickly added. This world has no spiritual energy, yet it has been able to develop this kind of technology. It is not easy, Lu San nodded in praise. Hearing this, a hint of joy flashed in the eyes of Little Qing and the others. Lu San then focused his attention on the thousands of different types of spirit crystal essence. He glanced over them directly. After all, these beast abilities were just child's play in the eyes of a Dao integration cultivator. Lu San then looked at the huge melting furnace that was constantly roaring and pulsating. The wisps of dangerous aura overflowing from it made him narrow his eyes slightly. You are playing with fire, Lu San finally commented after a long time. The union of all beasts. It does have its possibilities. But if that terrifying creation can really be created, I am afraid that your so-called heart-to-heart connection will not be able to control it. Perhaps there would be a glimmer of hope if the beast-controlling sect's treasure wheel of myriad beasts was still around. Little Qing and Little Hong looked at each other, both shocked. However, before they could respond, Lu San left a sentence and left directly. I roughly know the situation of this world. Patiently wait for the results. Little Qing asked uneasily, fellow Taoist Shu. Shu Bai looked helpless. I said earlier that the Myriad Immortals Alliance's offensive is fierce now, and many small worlds have fallen one after another. The organization has decided to implement a tail-cutting plan to shrink the scope of its power. Only those small worlds with value will be retained as core members. The final result is not something that Elder Lu can decide alone. The organization's higher-ups need to conduct a comprehensive assessment before making a decision. As proof, Shu Bai also showed everyone the scenes he had recently collected from the Heavenly Zon treasure mirror, showing the small worlds being lost one after another under the frantic attacks of the Myriad Immortals Alliance cultivators. Faced with this scene full of killing, cruel and real, the three from the Empire couldn't help but change their expressions slightly. Throwing the image stone to them, Shu Bai comforted them and said, don't worry, for the sake of our same ancestors, even if the organization does not approve of your protection resolution, I will secretly come over to take you away and save your lives. Of course, the number of people cannot be too many, 5 is the limit. Shu Bai said with a solemn expression. Looking at the increasingly pale faces of Little Qing and the other two, Shu Bai finally added, of course, it would be even better if the organization ultimately decides to protect you. But then, as the price, all the resources and technology in the Empire must be integrated into our Multiverse United Association. No matter which result, you all need to prepare in advance during this period. I heard that there are still aristocratic classes in your empire. Shu Bai sneered and looked at the imperial daughter, saying, remember, the empire only needs an emperor. And doesn't need any nobles. From today onwards, let the empire have only one voice. After saying that, Shu Bai cupped his hands. I am also burdened with many things and cannot stay here any longer. I hope I can bring good news when I come next time. Without waiting for Little Qing and the others to say goodbye, Shu Bai flew out of the empire. Watching Shu Bai leave, the imperial daughter's eyes looked outside the palace. A hint of killing intent flashed, and finally slowly became firm. Xuanwang realm, at the entrance of the empire. Lu San, who had left first, was waiting for Shu Bai here. Young master, how was my performance? Seeing Shu Bai appear, he couldn't help but ask smugly. I didn't expect Elder Lu to look upright and unyielding, but he is so seamless in deceiving people that he doesn't leave a trace of flaws. I will have to remind Elder Zhang to be careful in the future, Shu Bai said with a smile. Lu San's face suddenly collapsed. However, he quickly took the initiative to change the subject. Putting aside everything else, this small world called the Empire really has some tricks. Not to mention anything else, just that myriad forms furnace is quite extraordinary, even in the ancient immortal cultivation world. 763. Peace and tranquility hide danger. Moreover, I can see that due to the natural limitations of the materials, the furnaces they use can only accommodate a limited variety of exotic beasts. If it were our Pill King True Cauldron, we might be able to multiply the number of exotic beasts fused at once by several times. At that time, who knows what kind of monster we could create. I'm afraid even if I joined forces with Yu Shan, we might not be able to suppress it. Lu San shook his head slightly. Like a poison pill, very practical, but unfortunately with too many limitations. If only we could master a method to control Dao harmonization combat power, Lu San suddenly sighed. Shu Bai's eyes narrowed, his expression unchanging. Instead, following his words, he thoughtfully said, Elder Lu has a point. The current Xuanwang realm is filled with strange and bizarre things. Perhaps there really is a way to control Dao harmonization cultivators. I'll inquire about it. If it really works, wouldn't our Pill King sect be able to produce a Dao harmonization combatant regularly after a certain period? Lu San couldn't help but feel a little excited upon hearing this. Although compared to the new law Dao harmonization, the lethality of this fusion beast is certainly inferior. But no matter what, it's still in the Dao harmonization realm. If there are enough of them, I think even if the Myriad Immortals Alliance wants to target us, they would definitely have some reservations, right? At that time, perhaps our Pill King sect can reappear in the world openly. Shu Bai agreed. It's not impossible to plan for this. By the way, young master, Elder Ruan is still sleeping in the Pill King True Cauldron. He has quite a bit of research on demonic beast bodies. Why not wake him up? Maybe he can find a corresponding solution, Lu San suggested. Quote. Memories from Lu Yihang instantly surfaced in his mind. Ruan Tianxiao, one of the Dao harmonization elders of the Pill King sect. Unlike other elders who use spiritual plants as medicine, Ruan Tianxiao is accustomed to using the bodies of animals, demonic beasts, and human body tissues as medicine. Although the effects are indeed extraordinary, the aura of blood and slaughter is too strong, and it has a somewhat shocking and unorthodox feel. Therefore, Ruan Tianxiao's flesh pills are not accepted by the public. He is also quite solitary, usually acting alone within the Pill King sect, without any close friends. After thinking for a long time, Shu Bai frowned and decided, Elder Ruan has always been at odds with everyone. I'm afraid that after he wakes up and suddenly learns that he has traveled to thousands of years later, he may not still have the intention to stay in our Pill King sect. Lu San couldn't deny this upon hearing this. That's possible. However, Elder Ruan's flesh pill technique does indeed have some unique aspects. Myriad transformations fusion beast. Shu Bai seemed to be struggling. How about this, after we officially acquire the Empire's technology, we'll make a decision based on the specific situation. If we can mass-produce fusion beasts on our own, then there's no need to rush to wake up Elder Ruan. If we encounter any unsolvable difficulties in the process, then it won't be too late to wake him up. In the end, Shu Bai said this. Lu San also nodded, expressing his agreement. The interlude was over. Shu Bai still had to return to Tianliang Prefecture. Lu San also had to return to Pill King Valley. After the two separated, Shu Bai looked in the direction where Lu San disappeared, deep in thought. Is this a test, or just a coincidence? Perhaps the previous events made him aware of something. After all, even Dao harmonization cultivators cannot defy the changes brought about by the fruit of true temptation, of heavenly venerate power, but it is still possible to perceive their own abnormalities. To be on the safe side, this venerable self should leave Longevity Valley first. Li Fan always acted decisively. As soon as this thought arose, the main body did not hesitate at all, only leaving a message saying that he had important matters to attend to outside. He quietly left Pill King Valley before Lu San returned. It would be best to ask the Five Elders Association to confirm the effectiveness of this fruit of true temptation. A gleam of light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Temporarily putting away the dissolution disc, he went straight to Shuofeng's residence. At the same time, Shu Bai, who returned to Tianliang Prefecture, secretly found Lu Wenyu, the Wai Shuyuan cultivator and Five Elders Association spy who had traded with him. Fellow Taoist Lu, I heard that you haven't generated your own heavenly profound treasure mirror yet. Shu Bai first asked this. A trace of gloom flashed across Lu Wenyu's face, but he didn't say anything out of line. Instead, he hinted, it's coming soon. Although there are still many cultivators in the Immortal Alliance who are worried about the existence of the heavenly profound treasure mirror and are unwilling to generate it. But it is said that the official decision has been made. All members of the Myriad Immortals Alliance system must generate a treasure mirror in their bodies. Our Waishuyuan cultivators must be the first to complete it. This is only the first step. I believe that before long, the day will come when all cultivators in the world will have treasure mirrors in their bodies. HMPH, at that time. A trace of undisguised panic flashed in Lu Wenyu's eyes. I don't think it's anything. This thing is indeed miraculous. With it, it saves a lot of trouble. Shu Bai smiled slightly, unconcerned. Huh, you've already generated it. Lu Wenyu's expression changed, and he was about to retreat. But Shu Bai grabbed him. The doomsday disc suddenly appeared above his head, emitting a faint white light, covering the two of them. Don't be nervous, the mere heavenly profound treasure mirror is not something our Overturning Heaven Alliance takes seriously, Shu Bai said directly with an arrogant expression. What Overturning Heaven Society? I don't understand what you're talking about, Lu Wenyu said, shaking his head hastily, his face pale. Shaking off Shu Bai's control, he was eager to escape. But after hearing Shu Bai's words, he suddenly stopped. I've made it so obvious, haven't you seen it yet? As a Five Elders Association spy, your sense of smell is too insensitive. Shu Bai shook his head slightly. Let's be frank, our Overturning Heaven Alliance has a way to shield the heavenly profound treasure mirror's surveillance. Although the words were extremely calm, they were like a thunderclap in Lu Wenyu's ears. Impossible, absolutely impossible, he blurted out on the spot, we are all completely helpless. Lu Wenyu's words stopped abruptly, his face ashen, you're tricking me. Shu Bai chuckled. If what I said is false, then I suppose it won't be long before people from the Myriad Immortals Alliance Waishuyuan come to execute us both on the spot. Fellow Taoist Lu might as well wait patiently. Anyway, things have come to this, you can't escape even if you want to. Lu Wenyu's expression changed constantly, and finally he retracted his steps and sat down in the room. Waiting anxiously, time passed slowly, and he felt like he was living like years. But after most of the day, there was still no movement outside. Lu Wenyu instantly became suspicious and uncertain. He looked up at the doomsday disc covering the two of them, and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. This thing, can it really shield the heavenly profound treasure mirror's perception? His face was full of shock. How can Overturning Heaven be a false name? Shu Bai said lightly. There is a famous scene voting, everyone help vote for Tianyi. Tianyi thanks everyone. 764. There are demonic cultivators in the world. The Overturning Heaven Society, Lu Wenyu muttered in a low voice, filled with shock. His eyes were fixed on the terminal disc above his head, and he even involuntarily reached out his hands to touch it. As a spy lurking within the Five Elders Council, and almost driven to a dead end by the heavenly mystery treasure mirror, he knew all too well the value of this thing. What is this? Lu Wenyu couldn't help but ask. Heaven concealing disc, Shu Bai said calmly, and with a thought, the terminal disc instantly became illusory, causing Lu Wenyu to touch nothing. Only then did Lu Wenyu suddenly come back to his senses. Reluctantly turning his gaze away from the terminal disc, he solemnly cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist, you must have come to my door today for something important. Shu Bai snorted, that's right. I'm here to demand an explanation. Ah, Lu Wenyu was immediately stunned. Not long ago, a Hidao cultivator controlled by our organization through the fruit of true temptation showed signs of losing control. Fortunately, we discovered it in time and took other measures before he successfully betrayed us. Only then did we stabilize him. Otherwise, our Overturning Heaven Society would have suffered heavy losses this time. Shu Bai's tone was unfriendly. Didn't you say that the fruit of true temptation was created by the Heavenly Lord and guaranteed to be foolproof? How could there be such a flaw? All talk and no action. No wonder you've been suppressed by the Myriad Immortals Alliance to this day. Shu Bai glanced at the other party and said slowly. The fruit of true temptation failed. Lu Wenyu's face showed horror, but soon he shook his head repeatedly. This is absolutely impossible. As long as the Heavenly Lord still exists, no Hidao cultivator can violate his power. Lu Wenyu said very firmly. Shu Bai said in a deep voice, but the Hidao's loss of control did indeed happen. What's going on? Fellow Taoist, don't be anxious, and tell me the details of what happened. So Shu Bai concealed the names and details, and fabricated an event about a Hidao cultivator who, after realizing that he was being controlled, wanted to rebel. Lu Wenyu pondered for a while, then replied, perhaps you used the fruit of true temptation in the wrong way. Shu Bai was furious, so, it's our problem instead. We operated strictly according to your original instructions. Lu Wenyu quickly explained, the fruit of true temptation can distort a cultivator's thinking, making them deeply believe in even the most absurd things. But cultivators are not puppets after all. They still have their own thoughts. If the fabricated lies are too simple, when they realize that they contradict their own cognition, although they won't doubt it, they may re-verify it in various ways. For example, if you instill in a Hidao cultivator the idea that he is actually a mortal with no strength to truss a chicken, he will certainly live according to the ways of a mortal. But if, one day, he accidentally kills another Yuanian cultivator, the conflict between fact and cognition will force him to find the reason for the contradiction. To find a reason that can convince himself. Otherwise, the difference between cognition and reality is likely to drive the cultivator into a state of madness. For example, if you instill the idea of eternal loyalty into a Hidao cultivator through the fruit of true temptation. But if he realizes that this idea may have been influenced by something, although he will still be loyal to you, the way he takes may be a bit extreme. Lu Wenyu paused for a moment, glanced at Shu Bai, and then continued, he might think that the Xuanwang realm is full of crises. If his strength is not enough but he is exposed outside, it is likely to endanger his life. So he thinks that imprisoning you in a dungeon and letting you cultivate until you reach the Hidao realm, and have enough capital to travel the Xuanwang, should you be released. Although it may seem distorted and unreasonable to others, in their cognition, this is the most normal and logical thing. In our Five Elders Council, there was once a case of a loyal cultivator defecting to the Myriad Immortals Alliance. He is still loyal to the Five Elders Council, but he believes that the strength of the Heavenly Lord of Preaching is unpredictable, and we cannot resist it. In the long run, we can only perish. Only by actively surrendering and promoting the merger with the Myriad Immortals Alliance can we leave a glimmer of hope. Lu Wenyu said somewhat helplessly, he speaks eloquently and even constantly tries to persuade the members of our Five Elders Council. There are actually quite a few such people. We call them bewitched cultivators. It is the result of the incomplete defiance of the Heavenly Lord and the conflict with the overall Heavenly Tao of the Xuanwang realm. Of course, if everyone could be like the worry-free Heavenly Lord, whose divine power pervades all parts of the Xuanwang realm, this kind of thing would not happen. As Lu Wenyu explained, Shu Bai's expression gradually eased. We tried to make the lies as complete as possible when we set them up. Who would have thought that this kind of thing would still happen? Shu Bai snorted. Lu Wenyu was also somewhat helpless. After all, he is a Hidao cultivator, it's unavoidable. If it were so easy to control, wouldn't our Five Elders Council have unified the Xuanwang realm long ago? How could we have fallen into such a state? Then what should we do now? You didn't explain such an important thing when we traded. It's impossible to let him leave, and prolonged confinement will arouse suspicion. Could it be that we kill him and blame it on you? Shu Bai asked. Lu Wenyu was startled and said repeatedly, fellow Taoist, don't be reckless. In my opinion, there is still a way to save it. One is to use the fruit of true temptation on him again to repair the flaws. The second is, Lu Wenyu's expression became a little strange, actively reveal the truth to him. And then persuade him to correct his bewitchment. You might as well be more clear. Shu Bai's face was a little gloomy. Lu Wenyu lowered his voice, let's still take the cultivator who defected to the Myriad Immortals Alliance as an example. The reason why he defected is only because he thinks that our Five Elders Council is not the opponent of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. If we can convince him with iron evidence that the strength of the Five Elders Council is even better than the Myriad Immortals Alliance, or just able to compete with the Myriad Immortals Alliance, he will return to our Five Elders Council's camp. After all, the belief in his mind that he is loyal to the Five Elders Council has never changed. Shu Bai instantly understood what the other party meant. Of course, if this persuasion process is combined with the fruit of true temptation, then the effect will be even better. Lu Wenyu added, fellow Taoist Shu, I wonder if your overturning heaven society still needs the fruit of true temptation. He asked. 765. The purple sky shows its traces. Shu Bai didn't answer. He simply pointed to the apocalypse disc above his head and asked faintly, does your Five Elders Council need this thing? Lu Wenyu was stunned for a moment, then nodded repeatedly. Before coming, the organization had already given instructions. Fair trade, 1 disc for 1 fruit of true temptation, Shubai said, raising his head. Lu Wenyu nodded slightly, not feeling that Shubai was asking for too much. He even thought that the 5 Elders Council was taking a big advantage with this kind of transaction. He looked at the Apocalypse disc with some greed and said, there shouldn't be any problems. But I still need to report to my superiors and confirm. Hearing this, Shubai handed over another Apocalypse disc. You should carry this thing with you first. Now that the outside is full of the eyes of the Sky Profound Mirror, it would be bad if it were accidentally exposed. At the same time, Shubai told him in detail how to use the Apocalypse disc. Lu Wenyu's eyes flickered with excitement, and he also felt a little grateful to Shubai. Fellow Taoist is still very considerate. At this critical moment of disadvantage, our 2 families should work together to overcome the difficulties. Shubai waved his hand. You go ahead. Go quickly and return quickly, I will wait for you here. Lu Wenyu nodded and disappeared in a flash of light. After only half an hour, he hurried back. The higher-ups have agreed to your transaction. But there's a problem, how many of these sky-covering discs can your Overturning Heaven Society provide? Lu Wenyu asked. This thing is not easy to refine, and our organization doesn't have enough, Shubai said in a deep voice. This was also within Lu Wenyu's expectations, but Shubai's next sentence shocked him. At most, we can only give you a few hundred, Shubai sighed and said helplessly. So many? Lu Wenyu looked horrified and exclaimed. Instantly, a feeling of regret surged into his heart. He realized that this sky-covering disc might not be as valuable as he thought. You think it's too many? Then let's change it to 100. Anyway, if your 5 Elders Council doesn't want it, there are plenty of cultivators who do, Shubai snorted and said bluntly. Saying a few hundred, of course, means delivering them in batches. Do you think this thing is like weeds on the ground, that can grow as long as you water them? Not many. Not many, Lu Wenyu said repeatedly. However, we don't have that much stock of fruits of true temptation. Lu Wenyu said with some embarrassment. It's still the same as before, any valuable materials will do, Shubai waved his hand. Even, it's not impossible for our Overturning Heaven Society to lend you a batch of sky-covering discs first. It's just that the organization believes that we may need to further strengthen cooperation, Shubai said with some seriousness. Strengthen cooperation? Lu Wenyu frowned slightly. Since the Myriad Immortals Alliance established the Reincarnation Palace and the Sky Profound Mirror moved, the good situation has taken a sharp turn for the worse. If the Reincarnation Heavenly Venerate has already reversed the principles and cannot be saved, but facing the Sky Profound Mirror scanning numerous small worlds of Xuanwang, wanting to upgrade, your 5 Elders Council is still indifferent. With 5 Heavenly Venerates, no matter what, there shouldn't be no countermeasures, right? Shubai asked very dissatisfied. What exactly are you doing? Lu Wenyu hesitated. After a long silence, he said with some dejection, regarding this matter, it's not just you, fellow Taoist. I also have many doubts in my heart. Perhaps, we can take this opportunity to ask clearly, he said with a strange expression. The situation is urgent, the sooner the transaction, the better. 3 days later, outside Heavenly Cool City, in the Immeasurable Mountain. After Lu Wenyu agreed on the transaction location, he prepared to say goodbye and leave. Don't forget that the sky-covering disc I gave you beforehand should also be included in the transaction list. Hearing Shubai's words, Lu Wenyu's pace paused slightly. Then he quickened his pace even more. After a while, Shubai also slowly walked out of the room, turned into a flash of light, and disappeared. Immeasurable Mountain. Since the incident of the immeasurable wall-devouring cultivators, the Immeasurable Mountain, which was already sparsely populated, has become even more desolate. Not many cultivators in the world know about the enlightenment essence of the Immeasurable Wall. In addition, now, the vast majority of cultivators are conquering small worlds to earn merits. Even fewer cultivators set foot here. After all, you can be reborn after death, but after being swallowed by the Immeasurable Wall, it's really hard to say. Shubai quietly came to the bottom of the Immeasurable Mountain Valley, looked at the smooth immeasurable wall like a mirror from afar, and waited patiently. I heard that it was you who rescued Guan Xingshou's nephew from this immeasurable wall last time. Suddenly, a voice sounded from behind Shubai. Shubai was shocked. Turning around, he saw a middle-aged cultivator wearing a purple gold Taoist robe, who had appeared beside him at some point. He quietly observed the immeasurable wall, but did not look at Shubai. But obviously, it was this purple gold cultivator who just spoke. Shubai's heart suddenly became a little heavy. Although the other party deliberately restrained his aura, the fact that Shubai couldn't sense his existence at all was enough to judge the other party's true cultivation. Dao integration Immortal Venerable. Answering Senior, it was me who luckily rescued Guan Changge, Shubai replied respectfully. At the same time, his mind raced, guessing the other party's identity. At this time, appearing at this location. The cultivation base is still Dao integration Immortal Venerable. It's impossible to be a coincidence. Could it be that he is the contact person for this transaction of the Five Elders Council? Shubai couldn't help but guess. Dao integration Immortal Venerable is actually a spy of the Five Elders Council. Instantly, the identity of this purple gold cultivator in front of him became clear. Purple Firmament Immortal Venerable, the chief commander of the Myriad Immortals Alliance Martial Arts Hall. Even though he had already known his spy identity through the experiences of the previous lives. But when this Purple Firmament Immortal Venerable suddenly appeared in front of him, Shubai was still a little startled. Without first exposing his identity, Shubai tentatively asked. I don't know Senior. I am representing the Five Elders Council to trade with your Overturning Heaven Society. To Shubai's surprise, Purple Firmament Immortal Venerable said directly without any hesitation. Shubai suddenly fell silent. Unable to grasp the other party's intention, Shubai was thinking about countermeasures. Fortunately, it's just a clone, so Shubai wasn't too flustered. It seems that you have recognized my identity. Interesting. I have been sitting in the headquarters of the Martial Arts Hall for many years and have not gone out. Your Overturning Heaven Society is indeed not simple. Purple Firmament glanced at Shubai and smiled slightly. Senior is too kind. It's just that I was a little shocked to suddenly learn Senior's true identity. I don't know what to say. Shubai cupped his hands, pretending to be very nervous. There is a famous scene voting. Please vote for Heavenly Doctor, thank you. Voting method. Click on the event icon in the client, search for My Simulation of Longevity, find the option with the highest number of votes, and vote. You can vote 3 times a day, and you can also draw a lottery after voting. After the lottery, you can get it for free. 766. Rebirth shortens his life. Before Zichong could respond, Shubai, seemingly unable to contain himself, asked with a face full of doubt, this transaction is of great importance, so it's understandable that Senior would come personally. However, with your strength, Senior, hiding your identity should be easy. Why? Aren't you afraid that we, the Overturning Heaven Society, will find out and turn around to threaten you? Shubai stared intently at Zichong. Zichong said calmly, threaten? Hey, don't misunderstand. Although I'm here representing the Five Elders Council this time, that doesn't mean anything. It's just helping with a delivery. Zichong seemed completely unafraid, an attitude that made Shubai somewhat uncertain. Don't be surprised. In the end, the Myriad Immortals Alliance is the Myriad Immortals Alliance of the Heavenly Venerable of Dharma Transmission. And I, from beginning to end, have only been loyal to the old man of Dharma Transmission alone. As for the rest, they are all insignificant matters. The Great Tao is 50, and the Heavenly Tao evolves to 49. If the Heavenly Mystery Mirror wants to see through everything in the world, then it is only natural that there will be things outside of its control. Otherwise, this new heaven would be imperfect. Zichong looked up at the sky, explaining unhurriedly. Therefore, even if the Heavenly Venerable knows about my actions, he will not blame me. Perhaps he will even reward me. HMPH, but those ordinary people may not know my intentions. Although it was only a few words, the amount of information contained within was a bit terrifying. Upon hearing this, Shubai fell into deep thought. You don't need to know too much until you reach that level. It's not necessarily a good thing, Zichong Immortal Venerable said, interrupting Shubai's thoughts. With a wave of his hand, he threw over the empty stone mother containing the transaction materials. This time, there was no contract established. It seemed that he was very confident in his strength and was not afraid that Shubai would play any tricks. However, Shubai still checked and verified the list of materials in the stone mother as usual before handing over the 50 doomsday discs that had been agreed upon in advance. This is the first batch. The rest still needs to be delivered slowly in the future, Shubai explained. The 50 doomsday discs were not placed in a storage space but were stacked together like thin sheets of paper. With a thought, they would separate on their own, forming individual entities. Zichong took one of the discs in his hand and examined it. After a moment, he said thoughtfully, "This thing looks unremarkable, but it can shield the heavenly mystery treasure mirror's perception. Interesting." After putting away the doomsday disc, Zichong then instructed, "Future transactions will be handled by others. If your overturning heaven's society has any sudden emergencies, you can also go to Lu Wenyu. But try not to get involved with me as much as possible. Although I don't care. But if those people target you, even if I come forward, I won't be able to protect you." Zichong Immortal Venerable's figure gradually faded, just like when he came, his departure was also very sudden. "Senior, facing the heavenly mystery mirror's aggressive approach, why is the Five Elders Council only retreating again and again? Don't they have any countermeasures?" Shu Bai asked before Zichong Immortal Venerable's figure was about to completely disappear. Zichong did not answer, but only glanced at the sky as if absent-mindedly. Then disappeared. Shu Bai also looked up at the sky. After a moment, he was horrified. This sky was clearly not referring to the heavenly mystery mirror. Zichong Immortal Venerable said that from beginning to end, he had been loyal to the heavenly Venerable of Dharma transmission. Then his actions before leaving were also very obvious. It wasn't that the Five Elders Council didn't want to counter. It's just that now that the heavenly Venerable of Dharma transmission was present, they didn't dare. In Shu Bai's heart, the sighing illusion of Mr. Bai reappeared. The road to immortality cannot be tread, the heavenly Venerable of Dharma transmission is above. Shu Bai subconsciously clenched his hand. In the previous life, perhaps it was because of the departure of Dharma transmission that Zichong re-sided with the Five Elders Council and became a pure spy. And in this life, I used the chaos word tactic to bring back the Dharma transmission who had already left. Therefore, Zichong still adheres to his somewhat unique position and has not completely acted as a traitor to the Five Elders Council. In an instant, Shu Bai, who had sorted out the ins and outs of the matter, had many doubts in his heart. That is the true purpose of Dharma transmission. If his ultimate goal is to transcend and leave the Xuanwang realm, then, even if he cares about the chaos word tactic very much, after returning and searching without success, he should choose to leave again. But now a long time has passed. The heavenly Venerable of Dharma transmission seems to still be staying in the Xuanwang realm and shows no signs of leaving. It seems that the Xuanwang realm has a special meaning to Dharma transmission and cannot be abandoned at will. Moreover, the upgrading of the heavenly mystery mirror in this life must have been approved by Dharma transmission himself. He needs the heavenly mystery mirror to complete its transformation, but he also acquiesces to possible loopholes. The heavenly Tao has flaws. Therefore, he also needs to limit the heavenly mystery mirror. Many possible guesses instantly appeared in Shu Bai's mind. Even though this body was favored by heaven and earth and was naturally gifted, it still seemed like looking at flowers in the fog, unable to guess Dharma transmission's intentions at all. His mind was a little confused. After returning to Tianling City, Nangong Shirong called him over again. Recently, there seemed to be some bad rumors within the territory. "Go deal with them," Nangong Shirong said inexplicably. Logically speaking, Shu Bai was only the Tianliang Prefecture liaison envoy. If there were rumors, it would be natural for either the garrison or the martial arts hall to take action. But Nangong Shirong only quietly entrusted this matter to him alone. Shu Bai instantly understood. This matter should not be made public and needs to be handled quickly and beautifully. It was precisely because he valued Shu Bai's ability that Nangong Shirong entrusted the task to him. When the superior gives an order, the subordinate naturally cannot refuse. "Don't worry, sir, this subordinate will definitely handle it properly," Shu Bai cupped his hands and guaranteed with his head held high. After leaving under the other party's watchful eyes, Shu Bai asked around and learned what Nangong Shirong meant by bad rumors. It turned out that within Tianliang Prefecture, there was a cultivator named Peng Qing who suddenly went mad before his death and flew around everywhere. While flying around, he was also talking nonsense, saying that he should have lived for 500 years, but now he was less than 400 years old and was about to die of old age. There must be a thief who had reduced his lifespan out of thin air. Peng Qing cursed and died in public. Moreover, his death was extremely tragic, bleeding from all 7 orifices, and aging hundreds of years in an instant. His appearance changed from that of a middle-aged cultivator to that of a decayed old man in an instant. 767. The world re-establishes order. After carefully understanding the ins and outs of the matter, Shubai didn't immediately think about how to suppress the widespread public opinion. Instead, his main body, located countless miles away, directly checked his open black lens bracket still real close black lens bracket panel. The upper limit of his physiological age had not decreased. But Shubai didn't believe that Peng Qing's words were nonsense. The rebirth Heavenly Lord initially attained enlightenment within the white mist. And as everyone knows, the white mist is named, essence-devouring white mist, capable of devouring a cultivator's lifespan. Peng Qing's sudden death, the miserable state before his demise, was almost identical to that of cultivators who died in the white mist. All of this could not be explained by mere coincidence. However, to prevent the situation from escalating, Shubai first used coercion and enticement to silence all the eyewitnesses of that day. Then, he sent out cultivators to spread even more bizarre and terrifying rumors. For example, a cultivator somewhere died as miserably as Peng Qing, shouting before his death, "The one who destroys the myriad immortals alliance is the Heavenly Lord of Dharma transmission." Another example, Peng Qing was not Peng Qing at all. The real Peng Qing had already died many years ago. The one who died before everyone's eyes that day was a clone created by a cultivator from the Five Elders Council, named Open Black Lens Bracket Thousand-Faced Demon Lord Close Black Lens Bracket, with ulterior motives, attempting to create chaos within the Myriad Immortals Alliance. For a time, there were many conflicting opinions, and it was difficult to distinguish the truth from the falsehood. Gradually, although the heat of the matter did not diminish, not many people cared about Peng Qing's real, insane remarks before his death. Thus, another 10 days passed. The Peng Qing incident was slowly forgotten by everyone. Fewer and fewer people discussed it. Eventually, the public opinion completely subsided. It was as if nothing had ever happened in the world. Shubai did not fail in his mission, and Nangong Shirong was very satisfied. He was generous for once, rewarding him with a lot of meritorious service and contribution points. He also gave Shubai a statue. This is, Shubai held the statue in his hand, and a mysterious feeling arose spontaneously. It was like holding another body of his own. "This is the Open Black Lens Bracket Rebirth Edict Close Black Lens Bracket," Nangong Shirong introduced with a smug look. "Not long ago, I received 3 of these as rewards from above. It's useless to keep the extra ones with me. Since you have made great contributions this time, I might as well reward you with one. With this thing, even if you unfortunately fall, you can be immediately reincarnated and resurrected." Shubai looked happy. "Thank you for your kindness, sir." Since the establishment of the Rebirth Palace, Shubai, as a state liaison, had not found out how to obtain the many treasures in the Rebirth Palace. Although it was announced to the world that as long as you had contribution points, everyone could obtain them. However, the gates of the Rebirth Palaces in various states were tightly closed. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even Shubai couldn't enter at all. Let alone exchange for various supplies in the Rebirth Palace. Although there were many complaints from cultivators all over the world, the Rebirth Palace was not under the control of various states. It only used the excuse that the various treasures were not ready to send back the questions. Solemnly put away the Open Black Lens Bracket Rebirth Edict Close Black Lens Bracket, Shubai suddenly asked before leaving, "Lord Nangong, what Peng Qing said before his death, about a thief cutting his lifespan. Is that really the case?" Shubai lowered his voice. "If it's true, then we can only suppress it for a while, not forever." Nangong Shirong was silent for a moment, then shook his head slightly. "Since everyone can be resurrected, lifespan is not that important. For people like us, proving the Tao of longevity is an unattainable fantasy. Since that's the case, why bother caring so much?" Nangong Shirong paused and changed the subject. "However, not all cultivators in the world can be as open-minded as I am. Sooner or later, people in various places will notice this. It can't be suppressed. What we have to do is resolutely not let this matter break out in our Tianliang state first," Nangong Shirong said coldly. His words were tantamount to affirming the truth of Peng Qing's words before his death. Shubai was silent and nodded heavily. On the way to say goodbye and leave, Shubai's mind was churning, cutting his lifespan. Is it the Rebirth Heavenly Lord's incomplete reversal of the law, a necessary means to complete the resurrection of the cultivator's true spirit? Or, intentionally imitating Ruamu from ancient times? This Rebirth Heavenly Lord, from revealing his traces to officially reversing the law, revealed a hint of strangeness. The heavenly profound mirror takes the place of the sky. The Rebirth Heavenly Lord takes the place of Ruamu. Shu Bai suddenly thought of something, and his pace and body suddenly froze. Like the previous Purple Vault Heavenly Lord, he imperceptibly looked towards the sky. Then he quickly and inconspicuously lowered his head and hurried away. In Tianquan State, in the Shuafeng courtyard. Brother Li. Shuafeng's somewhat surprised voice came. In the battle just now, Shuafeng was having a good time. Li Fan suddenly fell into a daze, and the attack that he could have easily dodged directly hit him. The vast sword energy crisscrossed, directly cutting Li Fan's lower body into nothingness. Fortunately, it is now the era of the new law. This small injury is nothing to a nascent soul cultivator. In just a breath, with the slight roar of the cave, Li Fan's body quickly recovered. Li Fan looked apologetic. I have only recently mastered this lifespan-shedding divine power, and I have been fighting with Brother Shuo for days, and I have become a little distracted. Shuafeng then realized. I was negligent. In a moment of excitement, I forgot that this kind of top-level divine power must consume a lot of energy. Ha ha ha, it's all my fault for being too excited. I haven't encountered such a miraculous method for a long time. It can even affect my control of open black lens bracket sword close black lens bracket, Shuafeng praised. Brother Li, you should rest for a while. While speaking, a sword light flashed, and Shuafeng cut off a few strands of white hair on his head. Then he shouted violently, and his whole body was like a snake shedding its skin. He peeled off his somewhat old and dilapidated body, like taking off clothes. The newly rejuvenated and powerful Shuafeng flicked his fingers and turned his old body into ashes. He sighed in his mouth. Fellow Taoists open black lens bracket silk reeling lifespan shedding close black lens bracket divine power is really extraordinary. In terms of actual combat effect, it can be said to be the only one I have ever seen in my life. If my physique wasn't special, I probably wouldn't be able to fight you so recklessly. If ordinary cultivators are hit by your divine power, I'm afraid they will die of old age in less than half a day. Li Fan made a look of mental exhaustion and waved his hand. Don't mention it. Although it was created with my painstaking efforts, it's a pity that it can't keep up with the changes of the times. Now that the Rebirth Palace stands in the sky, everyone can be resurrected. My style of divine power is strong, but its deterrent power is several times weaker. Anyway, everyone can be resurrected, so what if the body is dilapidated? Li Fan sighed. Shuafeng shook his head. Brother Li, you don't have to be humble. Rebirth and resurrection. Humph. The truly powerful people of this world will definitely not ignore your style of divine power. With this move alone, you have surpassed countless people who claim to be heroes. Well, the treatment should also be improved. It's a bit of a disservice to you to be only a primary offering. Shuafeng touched his chin and said slowly. 768. Heaven and Earth develop immortality. Shuafeng's efficiency was truly remarkable. He summoned a female cultivator in a light purple dress and gave a few instructions. Before long, Li Fan learned that he had become an intermediate guest elder of the Zan family. His initial merit points in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance had been raised to level 35. At the same time, he unlocked a new privilege. Once every 100 years, he could freely use the Heavenly Zan Mirror to deduce and enhance one of his divine abilities. A right unused is a right forfeited. Brother Li can take this opportunity to further improve the power of that silk-reeling life-severing divine ability. Although it is already quite powerful in practice, it certainly hasn't reached perfection and there's still room for improvement, Shuofeng said, stretching his body and causing his bones to crackle. Seeing that Li Fan seemed a little dazed, he reminded him. Once you've improved further, let's have another great battle. Among his peers, few could keep up with his cultivation progress. Before long, they would be left behind, unable to fight him. Qualified opponents like Li Fan were rare. And Li Fan could even occasionally surprise him. This made Shuofeng very satisfied with Li Fan. I wonder what the difference is between this divine ability deduction function and the one provided in the Heavenly Zan Treasure Mirror. I previously tried to use the power of the Heavenly Zan Mirror to deduce the subsequent developments of my divine abilities in that seated discussion of Tao, but the cost was too high, like a bottomless pit. I had to give up halfway through, Li Fan asked, looking at the prompts from the small Heavenly Zan Mirror in the field. The Heavenly Zan Treasure Mirror is just a branch of the Heavenly Zan. Although its various functions are already wonderful for ordinary cultivators, they are still much weaker compared to the true power of the Heavenly Zan Mirror, Shuofeng said with a smile. The subsequent developments deduced by the Heavenly Zon Treasure Mirror and the Heavenly Zon Mirror for the same divine ability may not be worlds apart, but there is definitely a qualitative difference. However, the smile on Shuo Feng's face suddenly stopped. This is just the difference between the current Heavenly Zon Treasure Mirror and the Heavenly Zon Mirror itself. After a while, that will be hard to say. Perhaps, by then, any sub-mirror in the world will be no different from its main body, Shuo Feng said, his expression strange, as if he had remembered something, and his expression became serious. Li Fan understood the meaning of Shuo Feng's words. His heart began to pound. So, the privilege of merit points level 35 was actually to use the Heavenly Zon Mirror itself to deduce the subsequent developments of divine abilities. Doesn't that mean he finally had another chance to see the real Heavenly Zon Mirror? The last time he saw it was during the training to build the Heavenly Zon Spirit Lock. In that vast space filled with black and white lines, a group of trainees, including Li Fan, closely observed the birth and encapsulation of the Heavenly Zon Newborn Mirror. In this world, the Heavenly Zon Mirror has completed its initial transformation. I wonder what changes there will be, Li Fan thought. At this time, Shuo Feng had recovered from his contemplation, and he added, as for the divine ability deduction function in the seated discussion of doubt section. You'd better not try it in the future. Even I only dared to try my luck when I was young and vigorous. Now I'm much more sober and unwilling to waste my time for nothing, Shuo Feng said with a rare sigh. Li Fan was slightly stunned when he heard this. Why is that? Is there something in the world that even Brother Shuo can't afford? Shuo Feng waved his hand and explained, there is a difference between the theory and practice of divine abilities. When the Heavenly Zon Treasure Mirror and the Heavenly Zon Mirror deduce divine abilities, they set a possible upper limit. For example, your silk reeling life severing, when used by a nascent soul cultivator, can at most cause damage to a transformation god cultivator. It can also have some effect on a fusion cultivator. But it will definitely lose its effectiveness in front of an eternal celestial. This is the limit of most divine abilities in the world. No matter how talented one is, it is impossible to create a divine ability in the Xuanwang world with a cultivation level lower than the eternal realm that can endanger an eternal celestial. This is the actual reality. Shuo Feng paused, then looked up at the sky. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, then, theoretically speaking, do divine abilities that can affect eternal celestials with a realm below eternal existence exist? There must be some in the world, Shuo Feng's eyes flashed with longing. But that may already be close to the level of legendary immortal techniques. Not to mention as, even the Heavenly Zon Mirror would find it extremely difficult to deduce that level of existence. In addition to using most of its computing power, success may also require a trace of luck. The deduction function in the seated discussion of Tao has no upper limit. As long as it is theoretically possible, there is a chance to deduce it. Therefore, the contribution points required for each deduction are unimaginably huge. The further you go, the more it is. And the result, Shuo Feng smiled slightly mockingly, since the establishment of the seated discussion of Tao, it has attracted countless gamblers who have devoted themselves to it, even to the point of bankruptcy. The total number of deductions by the Heavenly Zon Mirror is too numerous to calculate. But no one has ever been heard of succeeding. Li Fan was dumbfounded when he heard this, and he shook his head repeatedly. I didn't expect there to be such a trick. If I had known this earlier, I would never have tried it. I knew I was not a lucky person when I was almost killed by Brother Shuo's sword, Li Fan said with a sigh. Shuo Feng remembered the first time they met, and he found it interesting, so he laughed heartily. By the way, Brother Shuo, do you have a Heavenly Zon Treasure Mirror with you? Li Fan suddenly asked. Recently, there have been rumors that the Immortal Alliance is promoting the idea that all cultivators should generate their own treasure mirror. A trace of gloom flashed across Shuo Feng's face. Heavenly Zon Treasure Mirror. Hee, I may be the first person in the entire 10,000 Immortals Alliance to wear this thing. The less said about it, the better. Just thinking about it is annoying. Brother Li, let's have another battle. As he spoke, streaks of sword light flew out from Shuo Feng's body, extremely sharp and slashing towards Li Fan. They contained a hint of resentment. Li Fan's heart tightened, and he did not dare to be careless, so he immediately concentrated and responded. In the Longevity Valley, Fang Ziji, who was ordered to recruit disciples from the outside world, has now successfully completed his mission. On the square of the sect's main hall, a group of 5 or 6-year-old children are standing. They timidly looked around, their faces full of fear. Many even burst into tears on the spot, triggering a chain reaction. It immediately turned into chaos. Mr. Fang, are these the good seedlings you brought back? Shu Bai asked, looking at Fang's IG. 769. The self wants to build a foundation. Leave it to me, sect leader. You can rest assured, Fang's IG patted his chest, guaranteeing. My judgment is far better than old Lu's, I'll never misjudge. I bet every one of these little ones is a once-in-a-lifetime cultivation genius. I've scoured over a dozen states to find just these few. It shows how difficult this trip was, Fang's IG sighed. You didn't just kidnap these little darlings without even saying hello, did you? Looking at the crying children, Lu San's expression turned grim. What a joke, treading the path to immortality, seeking the road to becoming a celestial being. Countless mortals would beg for such a chance, and I'm kindly guiding them. Should I really need their parents' permission? Fang's IG rolled his eyes at Lu San, taking it for granted. Besides, our Medicine King sect is still in seclusion. Naturally, we must be more discreet in our actions. His words left Lu San speechless. Since they were brought here by Mr. Fang, it means they have a karmic connection with our Medicine King sect. I trust Mr. Fang's judgment, Shu Bai lightly coughed, making the decision. It's not like the ancient times when countless sects and cultivators roamed the land, selecting disciples. The myriad Immortal Alliance governs with non-interference. Who can walk the path of cultivation depends entirely on their own fate. Therefore, many talented individuals are bound to be buried. This might be an opportunity for our Medicine King sect. Hearing this, Lu San's eyes lit up. Sect leader is right. Then, taking care of these disciples will still require Elder Lu's efforts. First, teach them the methods of cultivation. Once they reach the qi refining stage. Shu Bai was speaking when a sudden inspiration struck him. After pondering for a moment, he changed his mind. When initially telling them about the methods of cultivation, don't mention the matter of using the wonders of false heaven and earth to build the foundation. Instead, only tell them to melt one's own body to build the foundation. Lu San and Fang's IG were both slightly stunned upon hearing this. Neither of them were fools, and they instantly understood Shu Bai's intention. Wonderful. If any of them successfully establishes their foundation, then it will surely be foundation establishment with the self. Fang's IG exclaimed in admiration. But a trace of hesitation flashed across Lu San's face. Sect leader, wouldn't that be a bit? Shu Bai smiled slightly. If they truly can't establish their foundation and have completely given up, it won't be too late to tell them the truth. Seeing Shu Bai say this, Lu San had no choice but to nod in agreement. After explaining in detail the foundation establishment with the self that he knew to Lu San, Shu Bai suddenly asked, by the way, why haven't I seen Elder Zhang? I clearly sensed her return. Fang's IG immediately gloated. She went to fight someone and suffered a crushing defeat. She was so stimulated that she went into secluded cultivation. Haha, I heard the opponent was a woman. She was prettier than her and even mocked her. Yu Shan must be furious. Finally, there will be some time without hearing her annoying voice. Fang's IG looked very relieved. Lu San's expression changed slightly. What? Why didn't you tell me about such an important matter earlier, Lao Fang? Is Yu Shan injured? Saying this, Lu San became anxious. He temporarily put aside the task Shu Bai had given him and hurriedly flew away to visit Zhang Yushan. Fang's IG curled his lips. I don't understand what Lu San sees in that woman. Since Elder Zhang is going into secluded cultivation, then the task of creating the end disc will be given to Mr. Fang, Shu Bai said, interrupting Fang's IG's thoughts. With your abilities, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Shu Bai looked at him with some anticipation. Being assigned to do manual labor, Fang's IG was not annoyed at all. Instead, he was overjoyed. No problem, of course, no problem. The end disc is something that can be compared to a celestial artifact. I've long thought that Yu Shan was too rough when handling it. Sect leader, rest assured, I will treat it very gently. Fang's IG looked at Shu Bai expectantly. Shu Bai smiled and threw the end disc over to him. Without waiting for instructions, Fang's IG, having obtained the treasure, left excitedly on his own. At this time, Shu Bai turned his attention to the group of children in the square. If the true body were here, it would definitely find their crying very annoying. But looking at these noisy children, the clone Shu Bai didn't feel much impatience. Instead, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pity and care. Shu Bai silently comprehended the source of the emotions in his body. A smile appeared on his face as he slowly flew to the children's side. His celestial appearance and gentle aura instantly attracted the attention of all the children, and they all quieted down in an instant. They widened their eyes and looked at Shubai in unison. Shubai communicated with the children very kindly. In no time, Shubai knew all their names and their respective cultivation talents. As expected of someone who was hunted down by major sects in ancient times and still managed to escape every time. This Fang Ziji really has some tricks. The talents of these little ones are almost all no less than Zhonghao Bo's. Moreover, Ji Yu Xinghan, Shubai also saw a somewhat familiar name among these children. It was the same name as the cultivator who, in his previous life, first published a denunciation, revealing the truth about the heavenly profound spirit-locking array to the world. That long, 10,000-word, impassioned article instantly appeared in Shubai's mind. Looking at the 5-year-old child in front of him again, the two figures eventually slowly overlapped. It really is him. Interesting. Ji Yu Xinghan, as one of the leaders of the Overturning Heaven Society in his previous life, led countless cultivators to fight against the profound net, but was never captured by the Heavenly Alliance. His ability is beyond doubt. It seems that perhaps this kid can bring me some surprises. Shubai gently patted Ji Yu Xinghan on the shoulder, his smile growing wider. After a while, Lu San returned, looking dejected. Clearly, he hadn't even seen Zhang Yushan. He had to cheer up and seriously deal with the children. With Shubai's comfort earlier, the children were much more obedient. When Shubai left, they waved goodbye to him. Lu San watched with amazement. Instead of returning to Tianlingzhou, Shubai first came to the secret chamber of Chengsheng Valley. He was unsure about a certain idea that had suddenly emerged in his mind. He needed to calm down and think it over carefully. Should I use this body to perform the ritual and enter the fallen immortal realm? This was the idea that had suddenly emerged in his mind when facing the children. Being so kind to the children, Mr. Bai should indeed be a good person, as Shu Kei said. If so, what would happen if he entered the fallen immortal realm with this body? 770. The human heart is hard to measure. There was no doubt that Mr. Bai must have had a great connection with the fallen immortal realm. And if he were to enter it with his clone Shu Bai, it might attract the attention of Mr. Bai, who exists in the fallen immortal realm. But the result was destined to be a mix of fortune and misfortune. Having experienced too much since his transmigration, Li Fan would no longer easily believe anything. Not even what he saw with his own eyes. Especially when it concerned his own life and safety. After much deliberation, Shubai finally suppressed the inexplicable urge to explore the fallen immortal realm. Its arrival is strange, so I must be cautious, Shubai muttered, his expression unreadable. This body was refined from Shu Kei's blood essence, combined with Mr. Bai's divine essence. Just by being tainted with a bit of his divine essence, Shubai had experienced many strange phenomena, including but not limited to, being favored by heaven and earth, possessing extraordinary talent, often feeling compassion, and, sometimes having uncontrollable thoughts in his mind. All of this was enough to demonstrate Mr. Bai's power. It couldn't help but make Li Fan feel wary. It would be fine if the influence was limited to the clone. What Li Fan truly feared was that this change would subtly affect his true body through the connection between the clone and the original. Would he still be himself then? Even if he was, would he be able to get rid of this contamination? That's right, in Li Fan's eyes, this bizarre phenomenon of changing his original nature was definitely a kind of contamination to him. It was something he could never accept. If there is even a trace of the true body being affected, I will immediately revert to the truth, Shubai secretly decided. Calming his mood, Shubai looked as usual and left Chengsheng Valley. Returning to Tianliang province, he continued to handle the various events that the liaison envoy was responsible for. Since the prelude to the conquest of the small worlds had begun, he had an additional responsibility. That was to monitor the number of known blessed lands and small worlds within the territory, and to coordinate and organize cultivators to conquer them. The essence of the reason was that all the unknown small worlds in the world currently represented a large amount of merit and contribution to the cultivators. Unless there were special circumstances, they would not choose to give them to others. They would often choose to share them with relatives and friends first. Only when the power of the small world was too strong, and their own small group was unable to solve it, would they reluctantly share it with others. The scenario that the Myriad Immortals Alliance had envisioned, where cultivators would generously share information with other cultivators of the Immortal Alliance after discovering the entrance to a small world, was an extremely rare occurrence. Because after so much time had passed, the cultivators had already realized it. The conquest of the small worlds was actually a non-renewable resource. It was also likely the only way they would encounter in their lifetime to accumulate merit and contribution so quickly. Since this was the case, they would naturally have to calculate carefully and maximize their benefits. Therefore, after the initial rapid expansion, the process of conquering the myriad worlds suddenly slowed down. And the Myriad Immortals Alliance naturally knew the reason for this phenomenon. Thus, he had this newly added task and responsibility. Although there were no mandatory measures, he was, after all, holding an official position in the Myriad Immortals Alliance. And with him coming forward, it would often facilitate the strong alliance of many small groups. Therefore, he did not encounter any resistance. On the contrary, after his reputation spread, some cultivators would take the initiative to come to him for help. After interacting with them more, Shubai roughly understood their demands. First, they could share the small world entrance information they had with others. But correspondingly, the cultivators who benefited from this would also have to give priority to them in the future if they discovered other small worlds and needed help. That is, so-called mutual assistance. Second, conquering the small worlds was not as simple as eating and drinking. Instead, they needed to face bloody killings at all times, and they would lose their lives if they were not careful. Therefore, the fellow cultivators must be trustworthy. Not to mention sharing life and death, at the very least, they must not stab them in the back. Third, so-called good water should not flow to outsiders' fields. If possible, the small worlds in Tianliang province should best be digested by the local cultivators of Tianliang province themselves. Shubai had reincarnated for hundreds of lifetimes, claiming to understand people's hearts. But when faced with these cultivators harboring ulterior motives, he still felt a little overwhelmed. Often, a team of seemingly harmonious cultivators introduced by him would eventually have only a few people returning. They would not mention the fallen cultivators in the team, but would instead accuse each other. But the next time, when contacting them and asking if they could team up to conquer again, 9 times out of 10, they would still agree to it. Because although they knew the other party's dark behavior, they also knew some of their details after all. Compared to completely unknown and unfamiliar partners, they were instead more trustworthy. People's hearts are truly unfathomable and difficult to figure out. Shubai shook his head and sighed. In his mind, the names of the cultivators were like chess pieces, with different permutations and combinations due to their different personalities and abilities. Shubai was trying to find a way to maximize the power of the Tianliang province cultivators. It was also not a bad thing, another unique way of cultivation. Shubai thought to himself. Currently, in Tianling province, a total of 13 small worlds have been discovered. Among them, one is extremely dangerous. No one has survived several conquests, and it has been temporarily shelved. The remaining 12 have been completely cleared by half. After the Immortal Alliance cultivators completely destroyed the resistance forces of the small world and completed the scanning of the small world with the heavenly profound treasure mirror, the Myriad Immortals Alliance headquarters would send a team of black-clothed cultivators to take over, expelling irrelevant people while sealing the entrance. It was unknown what they were doing inside. Even when Shubai inquired with Nangong Shirong, he was unable to find out anything. However, afterwards, according to the feedback from many cultivators under his command, shortly after being taken over by the black-clothed cultivators, the entrances to these small worlds disappeared for no reason. Although the locations marked on the heavenly profound treasure mirror map were still there, when they really went there, they could not find the specific entrance no matter what. It's not that it's concealed in some way, but that the entrance itself has changed. In fact, the entrance itself is still there, but it seems to have been encrypted in some way, and ordinary methods cannot find it. Shubai came to this conclusion after exploring the site. Just as Shubai was busy in Tianliang province, the true body Li Fan finally bid farewell to the enthusiastic Shuafeng and left his mansion. During these days of being entangled in duels, Li Fan himself had benefited a lot. But he was more surprised by Shuafeng's speed of progress. From the very beginning, he had no ability to resist in front of silk extraction and life reduction. He could only rely on his somewhat strange physique to endure it. Later, Shuafeng was able to slowly adapt to the impact of life reduction on him. 771. Understand the supernatural power in the mirror. It's like developing resistance to divine powers after being beaten too much, Li Fan thought to himself, secretly alarmed. Li Fan's methods were becoming increasingly weak. Shuofeng, however, fought more and more bravely. In the end, Li Fan left on the pretext that he was no match and needed to return to contemplate new divine powers. He didn't go anywhere else but went straight to the Tianquan mirror in Tianquan Prefecture, using his Tier 35 authority privilege. Contrary to what he had imagined, instead of directly creating a passage to the Tianquan main mirror within the Tianquan branch mirror space, he was given a time and place and told to go there. When the time came, someone would lead him, latecomers would not be waited for. Li Fan arrived at a towering stone mountain shaped like a lotus outside Tianquan City at the appointed time. A middle-aged cultivator was already waiting there. The middle-aged cultivator had a goatee, wore a blue Taoist robe, and looked at Li Fan with some surprise. However, he was very polite, took the initiative to clasp his hands, and greeted, "Greetings, fellow Taoist, I am Wang Wan." Based on the aura that the other party inadvertently revealed, Li Fan judged that Wang Wan was at least a transformation god cultivator. He didn't delay and returned the greeting, "Greetings, Taoist Wang, I am Li Fan." After introducing each other and nodding slightly, they stopped communicating. The Tier 35 authority level cannot be achieved solely through powerful cultivation. He must have various connections within the Immortal Alliance. No wonder he is so polite to me, even though I am only in the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm, Li Fan understood. After a moment, another female cultivator wearing tight white clothing arrived at the top of the mountain. After greeting Li Fan and the other man, she also remained silent and waited quietly. Li Fan learned her name was Deng Mingqian. After that, no other cultivators came. A full incense stick later, faint spatial fluctuations appeared above the mountain top. As if an invisible thin line had cut out a transparent door, a black-clothed cultivator walked out. He glanced around, confirmed the identities of the three people. "Follow me," the black-clothed cultivator said in a deep voice. Without seeing him take any action, the transparent door instantly expanded, enveloping Li Fan and the other two. Then, a burst of dazzling light erupted. The door disappeared with the people in the field. A familiar feeling surged into his heart. Just like when he infiltrated the root of heaven and earth in the void of Tianling Prefecture. His flesh and blood, bones, all seemed to be dissolving and transforming. When Li Fan woke up, he found himself once again in that ridiculous form composed entirely of black and white lines. However, unlike in the root of heaven and earth, there seemed to be some mysterious power in this vast black and white space. It landed on Li Fan and suppressed him, preventing his own lines from quietly dissipating. Li Fan silently sensed the faint suppression force on his body and thought to himself, this should be the Tianquan mirror's protective measure for us. After all, we are here to comprehend divine powers. Without this layer of protection, ordinary cultivators would probably be completely assimilated by this space in a short time. However, based on my experience in the root of heaven and earth and my comprehension of similar, silk-reeling life-snatching divine powers, I should be able to live longer than others. Li Fan looked around. He saw Deng Mingqian and Wang Wan not far away, also transformed into linear shapes. However, there was a slight difference from their original forms. Deng Mingqian's body was a circle smaller than the two male cultivators. She looked only 13 or 14 years old. Although Wang Wan's body size did not change much, his faintly visible appearance had changed from the previous middle-aged goatee cultivator to a senile old man. Wang Wan seemed to have been here before and was familiar with the road, flying forward smoothly. Deng Mingqian was initially a little dazed and afraid. However, she had a good mental quality and quickly adapted. Following Wang Wan, she flew towards the center of this black and white space. Li Fan pondered for a moment and followed along. During the flight, Li Fan discovered that this place was different from the place where the Tianquan mirror gave birth to its own branch mirrors in his previous life. It was not as vast and independent, but it was faintly related. The essence is the same Tianquan mirror, but the division of labor is different, Li Fan had a realization in his heart. Before long, they arrived at the very center of the black and white space. There, countless vertical and horizontal lines had built a suspended platform. Deng Mingqian and Wang Wan had landed on the platform at this moment. The lines represented by their feet became very messy, scattered into countless thin black lines, like tiny tentacles, connected to the ground below. This scene looked a bit strange. Li Fan pondered for a moment and followed suit. The next second, the vision became colorful again. Countless characters fell in front of him like a waterfall. Finally, several lines of small characters were formed. Cultivator Li Fan has been connected. Please demonstrate the divine power you wish to deduce in your sea of consciousness. Based on the current cultivation of Cultivator Li Fan, the power limit of this deduced divine power is limited to the Transformation God level. Remaining deduction time. The last line was a countdown that kept jumping. Only 10 hours. In front of the Tianquan mirror, there must be some reservations. But this opportunity is hard-won, and we must also ensure the maximization of benefits. That shocking chaos character divine power definitely cannot be displayed. Li Fan pondered for a moment, but he had already made a decision. How similar is the space of the Tianquan mirror to the root of heaven and earth? If my guess is correct, it is analyzing the birth process of the world. Since that's the case, Li Fan's mind moved, and all kinds of insights about the reverse 5 elements life and death sword surged into his heart. The reverse 5 elements life and death sword is a divine power that Li Fan comprehended based on the great 5 elements nirvana sword, and added his own understanding of the life and death Tao. However, he is only in the nascent soul realm, and his understanding of the Tao of life and death is actually relatively superficial. After all, the talent and comprehension of the main body are not as heaven-defying as the clone Shubai. Since comprehending it, its actual use has not been much. To a greater extent, he still only uses it as a nirvana sword. As for the creative function of life, it is currently limited to only extremely useless things like creating spirit stones with bare hands. Hopefully it will bring me some surprises, Li Fan thought. He found that as he meditated on the divine power insights related to the reverse 5 elements life and death sword in his mind, the lines connecting his feet to the platform shook non-stop, as if they were swept by a light breeze. The black color of the lines became more and more intense. It seemed that something was being transmitted. Only a moment later, the feedback from the Tianquan mirror arrived. In front of Li Fan's eyes, various scenes appeared in an instant. He vaguely saw the birth process of the 5 elements cave again, and then thousands of shadows flashed by at the same time, forming a large tree with countless branches from bottom to top. Li Fan stood at the bottom of the tree, about to make a decision. 772. Transform the way to solve the crisis. Within Li Fan's sea of consciousness, a doomsday disk bloomed with a faint light, constructing a circle of disguise outside of his true mind. To prevent possible prying from the heavenly mystery mirror. And on that towering tree in front of him, Li Fan saw many distinct, yet seemingly homologous, scenes. All originated from the deduction of the inverse 5 elements extinction sword resulting in possible outcomes. Some strengthen the extinction attribute, pushing the power of killing to the extreme. Some focus more on the life attribute, not only being able to heal wounds in an instant, but also able to create things from nothing and create living beings. Still others return the focus of the deduction of magical powers to the power of the 5 elements. The unity of the 5 elements, or the generation and mutual restraint of the 5 elements, has evolved into countless possibilities. The sudden appearance of such vast magical power data is so enormous. Even with Li Fan's current divine sense strength, he felt a slight stagnation when he wanted to view the magical power tree. Every specific magical power that his thoughts reached would have corresponding specific feedback appearing in his mind. After having a general understanding of the whole, Li Fan looked at the countdown constantly jumping above his vision. Only then did he realize that, unknowingly, half the time had passed. With less than 5 hours left, Li Fan pondered for a moment and quickly made a decision. It is one of the possible branches after the fusion of the 5 elements, and its essence can be summarized in 16 words. The 5 elements return to one, Wuji Wuji, limitless as full of emptiness, its power is endless, and the spirit is immortal. That's right, the magical power that Li Fan wants is a wonderful secret method that can protect the soul. The power of the 5 elements to generate each other can greatly strengthen the circulation and recovery ability of the monk's body. It can almost reach the point where it can achieve its own spiritual energy perpetual motion even without external force. General trauma to the body can also be repaired in the blink of an eye. In the deduction of the heavenly mystery mirror, it is similar to the power of the 5 elements to generate each other. When the 5 elements return to one, there is a certain possibility of falling into a wonderful state of Wuji Wuji, limitless Yingshu Yingshu, fullness and emptiness. During the changes of Yingshu, fullness and emptiness, it is like a person's breathing bringing the source of life, producing a continuous stream of power that can nourish and strengthen the soul. With the blessing of this power, even if the soul suffers severe damage, it can also recover slowly on its own. Ordinary killing magical powers are actually of no practical use to me. Li Fan thought to himself. Those weaker than me can be directly suppressed with the binding insect magical power. Those who are slightly stronger than me, breaking heavenly hard sword and silk stripping life severing are enough to compete with them. And if you really encounter an opponent who is too powerful to resist, then just return to reality. For me, the more life-saving secrets the better. Especially those related to the soul. Mr. Bai's inexplicable influence on the clone made Li Fan feel a great sense of crisis. I have to pay attention to it. Without any thoughts of gains and losses, Li Fan, who had determined what he needed, selected the target in his mind. In an instant, the incomparably lush magical power tree in front of him gradually faded from the ends of its branches and leaves. All the other demonstrated magical powers disappeared in an instant, leaving only a bare single branch standing between heaven and earth. Then, it turned into a stream of light and shot straight towards Li Fan's sea of consciousness. Boom! It was like a earth-shattering explosion in Li Fan's mind. Accompanied by the intense light that was difficult to look at directly, countless detailed details of the magical power emerged together. It was as if someone was rudely stirring in the sea of consciousness with a wooden stick. Li Fan only felt that his head would explode in the next moment, and the unimaginable pain made him groan involuntarily. But this is the world of the heavenly mystery mirror, there are only countless black and white lines representing the rules, and there is no entity of sound. So to outsiders, Li Fan's line figure seemed to be greatly impacted. It shook and swayed violently. Li Fan also noticed that one or two black lines on his body occasionally broke away from his body under this violent change, dissolving and dissipating in this space. As a result, Li Fan felt inexplicably weakened. Li Fan's heart trembled, he concentrated his mind, and began to try his best to absorb and process the data that the heavenly mystery mirror had instilled into his mind. But the complexity of this magical power was beyond his imagination. With his current divine sense, after processing for a long time, there was no sign that the redundant data was decreasing. The amount of data contained in this magical power is too large, if this continues. Li Fan's heart sank. In just this short period of time, half of his line figure had been dissolved. Should I give up this magical power and come back next time? In a flash of lightning, Li Fan suppressed this naturally emerging idea. Although he was shocked but not flustered, he thought of a better way to deal with it. Under the Doomsday Disc, the crystal of the transformation Dao Stone suddenly burst out with a strong azure light under Li Fan's control. Similar to the white color produced by the heavenly mystery mirror when instilling magical powers before, it also swept across Li Fan's entire sea of consciousness in an instant. In the blue light, the data of the magical power was completely absorbed. It is like the endless sea water, constantly patting, gradually washing away the messy footprints on the coast. As the blue light flickered on and off, the magical power data filling Li Fan's sea of consciousness was also gradually absorbed by the transformation Dao Stone. I have the transformation Dao Stone, so I don't have to rush for a while. I can completely store it first and study it slowly later. The crisis was slowly resolved, and Li Fan, whose thoughts had returned to normal, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. When the magical power data named Wuji, Limitless Yingshu, Fullness and Emptiness Method by Li Fan was completely absorbed by the transformation Dao Stone. Li Fan was taken aback when he observed that the load of the transformation Dao Stone seemed to have vaguely reached some kind of limit. I saw that the originally crystal clear blue transformation Dao Stone was no longer transparent. The blue color seemed to overflow at any time, and even their constant shaking could be seen. And on the surface of the crystal, faint cracks could be vaguely seen. Didn't you say that the highest is only the magical powers of the transformation god realm? How could the amount of data be so terrifying? Li Fan was a little surprised and uncertain for a while. Although he didn't know what the magical powers of other transformation god cultivators were like, Li Fan could be sure that his Wuji, Limitless Yingshu, Fullness and Emptiness Method was definitely not comparable to ordinary transformation god realm magical powers. Could it be that the heavenly mystery mirror discovered something and left some kind of dark door? Li Fan's heart was startled, and he couldn't help but have this idea. But after all, it's just his own speculation. It's also possible that he's just scaring himself. After thinking for a while, Li Fan chose to stand still for the time being. He neither started learning the wuji, limitless yingshu, fullness and emptiness method nor deleted the stored magical power data. After recovering from his understanding, Li Fan first looked at the two cultivators around him. Dang Minqian seems to still be choosing which magical power to deduce. And Wang Wan is already in the process of understanding magical powers. 773. People call him the Little Heavenly Doctor. Unlike Li Fan, Wang Wan's comprehended divine ability shouldn't be too complex. At least, Wang Wan was extremely calm when receiving the data. The black lines composing his lower body didn't even show the slightest sign of fluttering. Not to mention, separating from his body. Could it be that I was lucky enough to win the jackpot? A shadow flashed in Li Fan's eyes. This Wang Wan doesn't seem to be here for the first time to use the heavenly mystery mirror to deduce divine abilities. Perhaps I can inquire with him. Having completed the deduction of his divine ability, Li Fan's connection with the black lines connected to the platform below was severed. However, the countdown timer in front of him was still running, so he hadn't been expelled from this space yet. Therefore, Li Fan wasn't in a hurry to leave, observing the two people beside him while waiting patiently. Time slowly passed, and soon there was less than an hour left. Dang Minqian, who hadn't made a choice for a long time, was clearly a little anxious. She looked a little helpless and finally seemed to have made a choice that she wasn't satisfied with. At this time, Wang Wan had already completed the comprehension of his divine ability, just like Li Fan. The connecting lines under his feet broke, and he opened his eyes. Wang Wan seemed a little surprised when he noticed Li Fan's gaze. However, since communication was impossible here, he simply gestured with his eyes and then looked at Deng Minqian again. After observing for a while, he shook his head slightly. The countdown reached 0. A ray of 7-colored light shone down from above. The black and white lines gradually faded, and the surrounding space became vivid. In a daze, the scenery blurred for a moment. In an instant, Li Fan and the others had unknowingly returned to the Lotus Stone Mountain outside Tianquan Prefecture. Dang Minqian released a burst of energy, fiercely striking the mountain in the distance, seemingly venting the anger in her heart. However, the mountain here was different from ordinary stone mountains, being extremely hard. Dang Minqian couldn't even create a crack. Tears welled up in her eyes in frustration. Little girl, too much greed leads to loss. Wang Wan couldn't help but sigh when he saw this. Under Li Fan's probing inquiries, he slowly learned from the other party the reason for the abnormality of this limitless spirit void art. It turned out that the divine ability tree initially generated in the minds of cultivators by the heavenly mystery mirror couldn't be fully viewed by all cultivators. Because it contained too many branches, ordinary cultivators simply couldn't know them all. They could only pick by luck. Like Deng Minqian, it was because she was faced with too many choices that she was dazzled. This delayed the time used to comprehend the divine ability. It's okay, don't be too discouraged, you are still young. Just come again next century. When I first came here, I was just like you, always wanting to pick the most suitable and powerful divine ability from that divine ability tree. In the end, I wasted my precious opportunity in vain. Seeing that Dang Minqian was still unable to let go, Wang Wan continued to comfort her. Dang Minqian said with some annoyance, "It's all because my brother secretly told me when I came that the heavenly mystery mirror would evaluate potential based on the cultivator's overview of the divine ability tree. The more you overview, the greater the potential. When imbuing the divine ability, the upper limit of the divine ability's power will also be greater. I was thinking of seeing as much as possible." The more Dang Minqian spoke, the more aggrieved she became, and she seemed about to cry. Your brother may not have good intentions, Li Fan thought to himself. What did you say? Dang Minqian was suddenly stunned and looked at Li Fan in an instant. Li Fan's expression changed. What do you mean by what you were thinking just now? Dang Minqian stared at Li Fan, somewhat aggressively. Li Fan retracted all his mind and narrowed his eyes. Fellow Taoist Dang, I don't understand what you mean. Don't pretend, I can sense what other people are thinking. Especially those related to me. Seeing that Li Fan was still pretending to be stupid, Dang Minqian's anger grew even stronger. You were clearly thinking just now that my brother didn't have good intentions. What does that mean? I sensed it clearly. When brother Qingyu secretly told me this secret, he was indeed wholeheartedly thinking of me, Dang Minqian said with confidence. This little girl is really inexperienced, Li Fan thought to himself again. As expected, Deng Mingqian's face became even redder when she noticed Li Fan's thoughts. She stamped her feet, extremely shy. She didn't dare to look at Li Fan anymore and turned around and flew away. So you really can sense what other people are thinking, Li Fan thought in alarm. Retracting his thoughts again, he stopped teasing the little girl and began to explain to her. Your brother Qingyu, judging from your words, must be very close to you. Then he must be very familiar with your cultivation status. How could he not know whether you have the divine sense level to fully view the divine ability tree? If he was really thinking of you, he would never have told you about this. He would only let you choose a divine ability suitable for your deduction with peace of mind. But he deliberately, pretending to be doing it for your own good, inadvertently revealed it to you. Li Fan sneered. This is deliberately trying to arouse your greed, so that you will return empty-handed this time. As for the thoughts you sensed in his heart, if he didn't know about your ability beforehand and wasn't prepared, then perhaps what you sensed might still be true. But he obviously knows about your ability to read minds. In this case, what you sensed doesn't prove anything at all. Deng Mingqian was about to refute when she suddenly froze, because she immediately sensed a strong sense of love and pity from Li Fan's heart. So ardent and straightforward, it was truly the first time she had ever seen it in her life. Deng Mingqian instantly turned red. She stamped her feet, extremely shy. She didn't dare to look at Li Fan anymore and turned around and flew away. HMPH, Li Fan chuckled. If possible, fellow Taoists should temporarily leave Tianquan Prefecture to avoid trouble. Wang Wan, who had witnessed the whole thing, couldn't help but remind him at this time. Although it was just an unintentional mistake to have her hear your thoughts, you did reveal Deng Qingyu's actions to her after all. This person is narrow-minded and always retaliates. Wang Wan kindly transmitted his voice. Li Fan cupped his hands. Oh, how does this Deng family compare to the Zan family? Zan. Wang Wan was stunned at first, and then his expression changed drastically. You are. I am an intermediate guest elder of the Zan family, Li Fan said lightly. In that case, I have said too much. The Deng family's juniors. Wang Wan was somewhat speechless. He quickly apologized to Li Fan. It's okay. Fellow Taoist was also kind to remind me. Li Fan didn't take it to heart. After leaving the other party's contact information, he flew away. On the way, Li Fan felt a little lucky in his heart. I didn't expect that after so many days, I would encounter another cultivator who could read minds like Tianyi. Fortunately, she's an inexperienced little girl. Otherwise, I might have fallen again. 774. The only guardian is the Wang family. From what I saw in the Tianshuan mirror space, Deng Mingxi appeared to be only 13 or 14 years old. That should be her actual age. Not very old. It seems she must be well protected by her family. So even though she can read minds, she doesn't seem to have much guile yet, Li Fan mused to himself. Clearly only at the golden core stage, yet she can sense my thoughts. It shouldn't be due to her cultivation method. Perhaps it's related to her foundation establishment treasure. The power of mind reading is already rare in the Xuanwang realm. And to be able to do it regardless of the difference in cultivation levels, it might already be in the category of a half-gift of heaven. A strange glint flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Throughout his reincarnations, besides the gifts of heaven, derivation jade, and sword, Li Fan had also encountered many cultivators possessing half-gifts of heaven. He Zhenghao's daughter, He Xingxin's Dao inscription compass, the Kongyu Immortal's Yin-Yang jade, and Sun Qi's Chengkan Wen Qi. But none of them, like Deng Mingxi's mind-reading treasure, had stirred Li Fan's heart so much. The human heart is said to be unpredictable. This is especially true in the Xuanwang realm, where cultivation methods cannot be shared. No one can guarantee that the companion who calls you brother might not actually be harboring murderous intentions. If he could master the ability to read minds, even if only for a few key moments, it would greatly reduce the various risks encountered during cultivation. Not to mention, it could also be used as a strength assessment tool in a sense. If he suddenly discovered that his mind-reading ability was failing, he would know that the other party was someone he couldn't afford to offend. Perhaps, I can even deduce a way to prevent my thoughts from being read by others. With his strong execution ability, Li Fan immediately returned to the Tianshuan mirror in Tianquan City to inquire about Deng Mingxi. The results were somewhat unexpected, as he couldn't find any valuable information. It was as if Deng Mingxi had appeared out of thin air. Li Fan changed his approach and instead searched for Qing Yuzhe, whom Dang Mingxi had mentioned. At the same time, he added the characteristics Wang Wan had described: arrogant, domineering, and vindictive. Almost immediately, it matched. However, Dang Qingyu's backer wasn't the Dang family, but the Wang family of Tianquan. So he's an adopted son. But the Wang family treats him like their own, even better than their direct descendants. Probably because of his sister, Li Fan nodded to himself. Although the Wang family of Tianquan couldn't be considered top-tier power players in the Immortal Alliance, they were still people that ordinary folks couldn't afford to offend. Many cultivators in the family served in the mysterious Guardian Hall. It was said that the head of the Wang family was entrusted with the important task of guarding the derivation jade. The moment he saw this information, Li Fan had already made a decision in his heart. He vowed to become friends with the Wang family for several lifetimes. However, after searching for more information, Li Fan frowned slightly. It turned out that Dang Qingyu wasn't the only one in the Wang family with a bad reputation. The entire younger generation of the Wang family, including the older generation, all had terrible reputations. In the entire myriad Immortal Alliance, there wasn't a single cultivator willing to speak up for them. When the Tianquan Wang family was mentioned, everyone wanted to spit a few times to show their disdain. Completely isolated, not just unique. This isn't just a matter of personal character, but intentional. Is it to avoid suspicion? Having been in the officialdom before, Li Fan was no stranger to this tactic. Derivation Jade. Li Fan pondered for a moment and stopped his search there. He didn't search for any more related content. The Tianshuan mirror in this life had already been upgraded. If he paid too much attention to these sensitive topics, he might be marked. Li Fan, who had already become wary of the Tianshuan mirror, naturally didn't want to cultivate in it. Now that the myriad Immortal Alliance cultivators were searching the mountains and seas, looking for entrances to small worlds everywhere, digging deep into the wilderness for secret chambers was no longer safe. The hidden dangers on Lu San's side haven't been eliminated. For a time, although the world was vast, Li Fan couldn't even find a safe place to cultivate in seclusion. This is the consequence of the Tianshuan mirror becoming powerful, just like the Zon net in the previous life. After weighing his options, he chose to rent a courtyard in the Tianquan city's Dao Discussion Pavilion. At the same time, he set up layers of formations as protection. Only then did he feel a little more at ease. Although there haven't been any suicidal actions, and all actions and plans seem to still be under my control, I strangely have a feeling of struggling in this life. This is the pressure of the general trend. My strength and cultivation are too low, so I can only follow the trend. Once I go against the trend, I will be crushed to pieces if I'm not careful. Perhaps I can consider returning to purity. However, before that, there are a few things I must do. Li Fan narrowed his eyes. After a moment, he shook his head slightly. Because the transformation stone in his sea of consciousness had absorbed too much data, Li Fan felt a slight sluggishness in his thinking. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's completely master the limitless emptiness fullness method first. Li Fan closed his eyes, and the blue crystal in his mind, as if it had eaten too much, struggled to emit a faint light. It slowly analyzed and processed the poured-in divine power data with all its might. Tianliang City. Shu Bai suddenly received a message from Lu San. Young master, good news. Among the new batch of disciples that Lao Fang recruited, someone has successfully established their foundation. What? Shu Bai was momentarily stunned. When it came to understanding foundation establishment with me now that Immortal Shang was dead, there were almost no cultivators in the world who could surpass him. Foundation establishment with me, how difficult it was. How could someone succeed in such a short period of time? Lu San this. For a moment, many thoughts flashed through Shu Bai's mind. He suddenly fell silent. After a while, Lu San's next words slowly rang out. However, it's not foundation establishment with me but a young man named Xie Lin, who, because he felt that this foundation establishment method was too difficult, actually figured out a way to establish his foundation with other things between heaven and earth without a teacher. At first, I didn't pay much attention. In the blink of an eye, he successfully established his foundation with a 10,000-year-old crouching dragon grass from Changsheng Valley. In that case, this Xie Lin can indeed be considered a remarkable talent. Since he has successfully established his foundation, then there is no need to force him any further. Just take him out separately and don't let the real foundation establishment method spread among the disciples. Shu Bai's expression gradually softened as he instructed. Lu San's laughter also came from the other side. Hee, I've already done so. This kind of person with extraordinary talent would definitely have been snatched up by the immortal Tao Ten sects in ancient times. How could it be our Medicine King sect's turn? Times have really changed. Shu Bai also instructed again. You can use the story of Xie Lin's successful foundation establishment to encourage others. Maybe it can inspire more geniuses. The young master is still the most thoughtful. 775. Think of Wanjun in a dangerous situation. After finishing his words, Shu Bai hung up the communication. His face immediately turned gloomy. A tiny oversight, but it still revealed a flaw. This Lu San usually seems frivolous, but I didn't expect him to be so deep. Indeed, in the seemingly ordinary conversation with Lu San just now, Shu Bai made a mistake. That was when Lu San informed him that a disciple had successfully established their foundation. He remained silent for a moment. This silence was due to his distrust of Lu San, because he knew the difficulty of establishing a foundation with myriad beginnings. He knew that this was clearly impossible. So he suspected that this might be a trap, an excuse for Lu San to coax him back. Logically speaking, after hearing this, he should have been either surprised or doubtful. He would have immediately questioned Lu San about the truth. However, he remained silent. Although he could find thousands of reasons to explain this silence, Shu Bai knew in his heart that it was useless. Because Lu San didn't say the whole thing at once, but said the first half and deliberately waited for Shu Bai's reaction. This in itself was a test. Lu San had already obtained what he wanted. He had already seen Shu Bai's distrust of him from the brief silence. When masters clash, even a slight difference can lead to defeat. However, things haven't broken down to the point of no return. The restriction of the true enticement fruit is not so easily broken. Although they have noticed something is wrong and confirmed their suspicions, they still cannot be my enemy. Besides the reason that their thoughts have been rewritten, more importantly, the Xuanwang True Cauldron is still in my hands. With the many Medicine King sect cultivators sleeping inside the cauldron as hostages, they would never dare to act rashly. Let's not worry about them for now. Until the end, a hint of ferocity flashed in Shu Bai's eyes. The relationship between the Medicine King sect and Shu Bai was in a strange state of balance. Shu Bai only communicated with them remotely through communication talismans. And Lu San and others continued to act as usual. They seemed to be completely unaware of anything unusual. During this time, Shu Bai took the time to return to the empire. Flying over the capital, Shu Bai faintly smelled the faint scent of blood in the air. Clearly, a major purge had just ended not long ago. Shu Bai revealed his figure, and soon Xiaoqing came to greet him. Inside the high tower palace, Shu Bai saw the Empress and Xiao Hong again. Shu Bai was somewhat surprised to find that in a short period of time, the Empress had changed from the appearance of a young girl to the plump and beautiful woman she was now. Furthermore, the look in her eyes towards Shu Bai had lost some of its timidity and gained some confidence. It seems that your empire still has some trump card technologies that you haven't revealed. Shu Bai said indifferently. The Empress chuckled lightly, her plump body trembling slightly. The empire has gone through thousands of years, and it will never put its survival on only one path. You should be able to understand that, right? As she spoke, her deep and bright eyes stared firmly at Shu Bai. Her eyes revealed a bit of charming allure and a bit of naked temptation. Shu Bai's eyes were as clear as a lake, without any ripples. Instead, he showed her an incomparably bright and innocent smile. The Empress's disguise was instantly broken, and a trace of panic and shyness appeared on her face. Please forgive my embarrassment, fellow Taoist. At this time, Xiao Hong slightly bowed and stood in front of the Empress. The Empress took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a long time, and then returned to normal. Without blaming or mocking the other party's overestimation of their charm, Shu Bai instead asked with interest, if I'm not mistaken, the Empress is pregnant. The three people present were all somewhat embarrassed upon hearing this. Xiaoqing waved her hand and placed a layer of barrier around them before whispering an explanation. After you left, fellow Taoist, we followed your advice and cleansed the empire's nobles. All those whose will was not unified with ours were arrested. Of course, the empire has existed for thousands of years. The strength accumulated by these imperial nobles should not be underestimated. Before the action, we had already considered the consequences of possible failure. In order to prevent the imperial bloodline from being cut off, the Empress performed the Saint Blood transformation technique early on. Xiao Qing glanced at the Empress before continuing. Actually, the Saint Blood transformation technique passed down by the Master has been greatly improved by the imperial family over the years. It can use external force to complete the gestation even when one's own conditions are not met. The fetus born in this situation is more appropriately described as a kind of clone rather than the next generation. However, there are also disadvantages. The clone cannot inherit cultivation and is just a pure physical body. Xiao Qing only said this and avoided answering further. Shu Bai narrowed his eyes with a strange expression. For the time being, he didn't pursue the matter and announced to Xiao Qing and the others that the review had passed. After the review of several elders, they unanimously believed that the various technologies displayed by the Empire were worthy of investment by the Myriad Realms Union. The Empire will also become one of the few small worlds under the protection of the Union. As he spoke, Shu Bai took out 3 end discs from his storage ring. He also explained to them the formation that could amplify the effect of the end disc and cover the entrance to the small world. Among the 3, the Empress listened in a daze. Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong showed joy. They solemnly put away the end discs, and then, at their signal, the Empress handed over a storage ring. The storage ring was engraved with a pattern of a heavenly mandate blackbird. The aura was a bit ancient, and it looked like it had been around for some time. It was very similar to Shu Kei's spirit pet, Xiao He. The things we showed earlier are all inside here. Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong looked at the storage ring, a trace of nostalgia flashing in their eyes. This was left by the Master and has never been used. Today, it is used to trade for the future of the Empire. He probably wouldn't blame us if he knew. Xiao Qing said with some emotion. Shu Bai only glanced at it and saw that many materials, including 10,000 beasts melting into one, were placed inside. He didn't directly verify its authenticity. Then, he put away the ring and looked at Xiao Qing and the others again. Noticing that Shu Bai still had something to say, Xiao Qing and the others all cast inquiring glances. The transaction between the Empire and the Myriad Realms Union has been reached. Next, I personally have another transaction with you. I wonder if you are willing. Xiao Qing's expression was a bit solemn. Please speak, fellow Taoist. I am very interested in the improved Saint Blood transformation technique. Shu Bai said indifferently. Xiao Qing's expression changed slightly, and she was about to refuse. However, Shu Bai's next words made it impossible for the 3 of them to remain calm. 776. Search for the way to defeat the true and false. I heard you mention before that the Holy Emperor of the Empire might be our common ancestor. I became very interested in him, so I put in some effort and asked people to investigate, Shu Bai said to the Empress, speaking calmly. Before the Empress could react, Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong became excited. What did you find out? You want to know too? Shu Bai smiled. Then exchange it for the Holy Blood transformation technique. Xiao Hong was about to answer, but Xiao Qing stopped her. At this moment, she calmed herself slightly, took a deep breath, and said to Shu Bai, based on just this one sentence, you want to get something for nothing. At the very least, you have to let us know that the information you've gathered is indeed worth exchanging. Makes sense. Shu Bai nodded approvingly, then extended his right hand. In an instant, a jet black feather appeared in Shu Bai's palm. From that feather, both Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong felt a familiar aura. Xiao He. Their bodies shook violently, and they exclaimed in unison. Just as they were about to take the Zon bird's feather to examine it closely, they realized that Shu Bai had already taken it back. It seems you are both familiar with this heavenly fate Zon bird. That makes things easier, saving me the effort of further explanation. Thanks to the convenience of the Myriad Realms Association, which can connect to all realms, I was fortunate enough to find Xiao He's remains in a small world. This Zon bird's feather is the only thing left on its corpse. Along with it, there's also a fragment of Xiao He's memories from when it was alive. Speaking of this, Shu Bai suddenly stopped. Xiao He is dead. Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong were initially shocked, then stared intently at Shu Bai. Having piqued their interest, Shu Bai glanced at them and then chuckled, Xiao He was much more loyal than you. To find traces of my ancestor, it didn't hesitate to sacrifice its own lifespan, wanting to scour every small world in the Xuanwang realm. Although it ultimately failed to find Shu Kei even in death, it wasn't entirely without gain. Shu Kei, he is very likely still alive, Shu Bai said slowly. His soft words fell into the ears of Xiao Hong and Xiao Qing, but they were like thunder. Impossible. They denied in unison. If Master were really still alive, then we would definitely be able to sense it. But a long time ago, we lost all connection to him. Xiaoqing frowned, a murderous intent flashing in her phoenix eyes. To deceive us for the holy blood transformation technique, you actually fabricated a lie about Master's life and death. Facing Xiaoqing and Xiao Hong, who might go berserk at any moment, Xu Bai was not afraid, shaking his head and sighing. So that's why back then, Xu Ke loved and trusted Xiao He the most. There was indeed a reason. You can all sense Xu Ke's life and death. Could it be that Xiao He couldn't do this? But why did it still firmly believe that Xu Ke had not died, traversing thousands of small worlds to find him? As he spoke, Xu Bai pointed into the air. An image appeared in front of him. It was precisely the memory from Xiao He's remains, of it traversing many small worlds, constantly searching for Xu Ke. Watching the scenes of different small worlds flashing by, and Xiao He's increasingly slow movements due to aging. Xiaoqing and Xiao Hong's bodies trembled slightly, and a complex expression appeared on their faces. The scene ended abruptly. Xu Bai remained silent, just quietly looking at them. After a long time, he spoke again. Although the Xuanwang small worlds are countless, we all know that there is actually an upper limit. Xiao He personally visited some of them back then, and has already eliminated these small worlds. And the first thing that can be confirmed is that my ancestor did not leave the Xuanwang realm back then. So, finally understanding, a glimmer of hope flashed in Xiaoqing's eyes, staring at Xu Bai. Master is in the remaining small worlds. Xu Bai neither admitted nor denied it. Instead, he inadvertently changed the subject. Originally, even if we knew about this, facing the vast number of remaining small worlds, we would basically only be able to feel powerless. But now it's different. The Myriad Immortals Alliance now wants to unify the Xuanwang realm, and all small worlds will be completely swept and conquered by it. Under the desperate conquest of many cultivators, they have already explored the details of many small worlds. Therefore, the remaining possible range for Xu Ke has shrunk again. Xiao Hong finally couldn't help but speak. Doesn't that mean that Master might be in danger? Xu Bai nodded. If the Myriad Immortals Alliance finds Xu Ke before us, according to their current consistent style, I'm afraid the situation will be grim. Xiao Hong's face instantly turned very ugly. No, I must. Calm down, Hong. Xiaoqing still maintained her composure. First, she stopped Xiao Hong with a look, and then said to Xu Bai, your statement is really untenable. Let's not talk about the fact that there is no evidence to prove that Master is still alive. Even if he is still alive today, how can you guarantee that the small worlds that the Myriad Immortals Alliance has explored? Before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Xu Bai's laughter. Fellow Taoist Qing, you are truly very rational. Yes, I admit that everything I just said was based on speculation from Xiao He's memories. But can you deny that there is indeed a possibility that Xu Ke still exists in the remaining small worlds? Back then, facing countless unknown small worlds, Xiao He was not afraid at all. Now that the range has been greatly reduced, you are still afraid to face reality. What exactly are you afraid of, fellow Taoist Qing? Xu Bai's eyes were like torches, staring straight at Xiaoqing, questioning her. Xiaoqing's body seemed to have been struck by a heavy hammer, and she kept trembling. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Moreover, all I'm asking for is just a technique that Xu Ke casually passed down back then. I didn't expect that after so many years, the people around him would actually be able to disregard his life and death for this mere holy blood transformation technique, Xu Bai said with a slight hint of sarcasm. Xiaoqing was about to speak, but the Empress, who had been silent all along, finally spoke at this moment. I agree to your request. Whether the Holy Emperor is dead or alive, I will never let him wander in other lands again, the Empress said firmly. Faced with the Empress's decision, Xiaoqing and Xiao Hong remained silent. Xu Bai nodded in praise, a wise move. Then he waved his hand gently, and a map of the Xuanwang realm appeared before everyone. The Xuanwang realm has undergone earth-shattering changes over the millennia. However, our Myriad Realms Association has been secretly monitoring and recording everything, so those small worlds that Xiao He has already visited in its memories can still be matched up now. 777. Mr. Bai's Red Rope. A winding curve divides the map into two. One side contains very detailed map information, showing state names, terrain, and topography at a glance. The other side of the curve seems shrouded in mist, making it difficult to discern even the rough outlines of the states. It is only roughly divided into 5 regions. The Five Elders Council is under the strict control of the five celestial venerables of longevity, making it difficult to penetrate. Even our Myriad Realms Union doesn't know much about it. As Shu Bai spoke, he instantly marked thousands of black dots on the map. Most were distributed within the territory of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, with only a few in the mist. These are the small worlds that have already been excluded. Most of them have not yet been discovered by the cultivators of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, but some have been exposed. Shu Bai gently pointed, and 37 black dots were marked with a small flag bearing the character, Immortal. Some have already been explored by the Myriad Immortals Alliance, but Xiaohe hasn't set foot in them these years. Another 435 immortal flags flew to various different corners of the map. Shu Kei's whereabouts should be in the remaining small worlds of the Xuanwang realm. Shu Bai said faintly as he stood in front of the map. I hope you can successfully find Shu Kei before you search all the remaining small worlds within the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Otherwise, if he is unfortunately located in a small world with an entrance within the territory of the Five Elders Council, then there is basically no hope. At this time, Xiao Hong couldn't help but ask, aren't you known as the Myriad Realms Union? Can't you provide us with the entrances to the small worlds you control? Does fellow Taoist Hong think that I am some big shot in the Myriad Realms Union? Shu Bai asked in reply. To ensure the safety of each small world, within our union, there are often only fixed envoys responsible for contacting specific small worlds. Apart from those they are responsible for, the envoys know nothing about the situation of other small worlds, Shu Bai explained. If you have the ability to kidnap Elder Lu, the Hedao realm elder who came with me last time, and torture him severely, you might be able to get something out of him. Xiao Hong was immediately speechless. The imperial daughter looked at the Xuanwang realm map in front of her, and a sense of powerlessness surged up. The look in her eyes became less decisive. This is almost like looking for a needle in a haystack. What, are you regretting it so soon? Shu Bai was a little surprised. What Xiaohe can do, I can do the same. Fellow Taoist Shu, rest assured, the empire will never go back on its word. At this time, Xiao Qing, who had been apprehensive, suddenly became firm. At Xiao Qing's suggestion, the imperial daughter finally handed over the improved sacred blood transformation technique to Shu Bai. It was not recorded by books or jade slips, but recorded by the Empire's unique alien beast bookworm. To perform the sacred blood transformation technique, certain specific resources are also required. Fellow Taoist Shu, please wait a moment, we will order people to prepare them for you, Xiao Qing continued. Shu Bai nodded slightly. Without directly checking the contents recorded in the bookworm on the spot, Shu Bai temporarily put it away, and then pondered for a moment before suggesting, the most important thing for you now is to race against time with the cultivators of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. In addition to using the power of the heavenly profound treasure mirror to quickly and conveniently detect the entrances to small worlds, you may also be able to roughly determine Shu Kei's location through deduction techniques. I wonder if Shu Kei left behind any personal belongings back then. I might be able to ask the seniors in the organization to help you deduce it. After all, I am also very curious about my ancestor, Shu Bai said with a smile. The Empire has many lost stealers within the Myriad Immortals Alliance. If they are also equipped with the disc of ending that Shu Bai gave them, it will be enough to search for the entrances to small worlds without exposing their identities. After hearing Shu Bai's words, Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong exchanged glances. After hesitating for a moment, Xiao Qing said, when the master left, he did leave behind some personal belongings. We have kept them well. Fellow Taoist, please come with me. Saying that, under Xiao Qing's leadership, Shu Bai came to the top of the high tower palace, to one of the inconspicuous small rooms. Unlike the luxurious room where they had just met, the interior decoration was very simple. It was impossible to tell that it was the residence of the Empire's creator. This is where the master lived back then, and everything inside is as it was. At first, we still had hope that the master might return. But after so many years, we have long understood that it is an impossible luxury. Xiao Hong's tone was somewhat sad. Shu Bai's eyes swept across the small room, and suddenly his heart shook. Because in the drawer of one of the wooden tables, he found a string of somewhat sparse red rope. There were only a few short strands, which seemed to break at any time. But whether it was its shape or the faint aura remaining on it, Shu Bai was extremely familiar with it. Is this the red rope that Mr. Bai left for Shu Kei? He didn't take it with him when he left. Shu Bai's heart trembled. He shifted his gaze imperceptibly, as if looking at other items. In fact, Shubai was constantly recalling the string of red rope he had just seen in his heart. There's no mistake, it's the red rope on Shukei's hand that can easily kill Kaijutsu. But it doesn't seem to be the main body. It was extracted by Shukei alone. Is it to leave the Empire with a final means of protection? But looking at the situation where it has been left here to gather dust, it seems that Xiaoqing and Xiaohong don't know how terrifying this red ginseng is. Shubai's thoughts turned in an instant, and at the same time, he felt a faint, almost uncontrollable excitement in his heart. He knew too well the terrifying power contained in this red rope. Even if there was only a trace left now, it would probably be enough to pose a fatal threat to Hedao realm cultivators. Naturally, Shubai's heart rose with the idea of taking it for himself. The deduction method is mysterious and profound. It is best to take more items. He explained. It doesn't matter, they are all ordinary things. In order to increase the probability of finding the master as much as possible, fellow Taoist can take more, Xiaoqing said indifferently. So Shubai took out a pen and a piece of clothing that Shukei had once worn from the room. Finally, he pretended to look around, and finally took the red rope away. It's that simple. With the treasure in hand, Shubai still felt a little unbelievable in his heart. However, after he discussed the details with Xiaoqing and others again, he bid farewell and left. Finally, after leaving the Empire, he was sure that he had actually obtained Mr. Bai's red rope so easily. It's just that the specific method of using it still needs to be studied further. Shubai did not dare to stay, and hurried back to the Xuanlong realm. He did not return to Tianliang City, but went to the nearby Lundao Tower courtyard and closed himself in. Completion check. Every part of the original text has been translated. Length comparison. The length of the translated English text is comparable to the original Chinese text. Confirmation statement. The translation is complete and accurate. 778. Essence and blood condense into a holy fetus, 2,000 monthly tickets plus more. Inside the cultivation chamber, Shubai sat cross-legged on the ground paved with top-grade spirit stones. He first placed the red string quietly in front of him, and then took a deep breath to calm his somewhat agitated mood. After all, since he accidentally obtained the Azure Sea Pearl that year, he had not casually picked up any treasures for a long time. Shubai narrowed his eyes and repeatedly recalled the entire process and details of this trip to the Empire. It shouldn't be a setup by Xiaoqing and the others. This time, I took the initiative to come to them, and the request to see Shukei remains was also made by me. Moreover, they are indeed unaware of the special nature of the red string. After thinking for a long time and not finding any flaws, Shubai did not touch the red string. Instead, he first took out the bookworm. As if alive, the book turned its pages on its own, projecting many texts and images above. Holy blood transformation. After a moment, a gleam of light flashed in Shubai's eyes. As expected of the person who was valued by Mr. Bai and created the entire exotic beast empire, the profoundness of this holy blood transformation is almost no less than any incarnation supernatural power. The mysterious true spirit transformation creates incarnations by directly using natural treasures to refine flesh and blood, and then injecting spiritual consciousness to sever the connection between the incarnation and the main body, forming a completely independent individual. This holy blood transformation, however, can create another physical body that is completely identical to itself, relying solely on cultivating one's own essence, blood and flesh tissue, without relying on spiritual power or spiritual consciousness at all. The entire process is similar to limb regeneration, but what regrows is another version of oneself. Before completely separating from the original body, the incarnation is always connected to the main body by flesh and blood, much like the process of humans gestating offspring, so Shukei called it holy blood transformation. Shubai also took out the 3 items from his storage ring that catalyze the holy blood transformation. They are Eternal Dragon Blood, Brahma Consciousness Divine Worm, and Core of Pure Light. The original holy blood transformation technique passed down by Shukei, considering that the users were ordinary people without any cultivation, the process of nurturing the holy embryo, which is the next generation, was quite lengthy, basically requiring half a year to wait for the holy embryo to slowly grow. During this period, one also had to constantly consume various nourishing medicinal materials and meats to maintain the normal growth of the holy embryo. However, in the thousands of years of development in the empire, through the research of successive emperors, they found a way to utilize the magical characteristics of various exotic beasts to catalyze this process. Eternal dragon blood can greatly promote the circulation of blood and energy in the body, compressing the period of nurturing the holy embryo from half a year to a month or even a few days. Brahma consciousness divine worm can nourish mental consumption. The core of pure light, when implanted in the holy embryo, can ensure that the holy embryo is not attacked by disasters or diseases during the gestation process. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. Although borrowing external force can greatly reduce the time it takes to nurture the holy embryo, it also creates many drawbacks. Because it grows too fast, the hastily made holy embryo is almost indistinguishable from the main body. Just like Shaoqing said, it is almost no different from an incarnation. The original holy blood transformation, over the years, will allow the holy embryo to give birth to a wisp of its own consciousness. It is only similar in appearance to the original body. It is hard to say which of these two is better or worse. Shu Bai's gaze swept over these three items, and he pondered to himself. However, this quick method is exactly what I need now. Absorbing the eternal dragon blood into his abdomen, Shu Bai silently began to circulate the holy blood transformation technique. An extremely intense burning sensation surged from his stomach, and then, like a raging fire, spread throughout his body in an instant. Puchi. A huge fleshy tumor suddenly emerged from Shu Bai's back. Flesh tissue wriggled constantly within it, and the fleshy tumor continuously expanded, changing from the size of a fist to the size of a baby in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, the clothes Shu Bai was wearing were the pure light glazed clothes refined by Fang Ziji, which could withstand attacks from the Dao integration stage. He didn't have to worry about his clothes exploding. The holy blood transformation can use any part of the body as the growth point of the holy embryo, according to one's thoughts. The emperors in the empire's history each had their own preferences. Shu Bai chose the back. Perhaps influenced by the scene he saw when he was still a Foundation establishment cultivator, being chased by the red-haired nascent soul, where infant phantoms were parasitic and hunched behind the volcano cave heaven. Without the vigorous vitality brought by the five elements, the flesh tissue is simply in a state of superactivation, breaking the usual limits of division. The so-called eternal dragon is just a long Jiao dragon that has reverted to the azure divine dragon bloodline. Yet it still has such a significant effect on nascent soul cultivators. Shu Bai felt the itching sensation on his back, as if ants were crawling on it, and couldn't help but be secretly amazed. The scorching eternal dragon blood surged incessantly in Shu Bai's body. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. The fleshy tumor on Shu Bai's back could already vaguely be seen to have some semblance of a person. And in Shu Bai's perception, this holy embryo was truly like a part of his own body, which he could manipulate at will. With a thought from Shu Bai, the holy embryo followed his thoughts, making various non-stop movements. However, the holy embryo had not yet fully grown, and it was like having a cloth covering its face, making it impossible to see its features clearly, which was quite terrifying. It's time. After thoroughly familiarizing himself with the holy embryo, Shu Bai's spiritual consciousness manipulated the core of pure light, slowly approaching the fleshy tumor. The bulging flesh was as if it didn't exist. Without any hindrance, the core of pure light went straight into it. Shu Bai clearly felt that the originally frenzied and disorderly proliferating flesh tissue in the holy embryo slowly became calm. The core of pure light gradually dissolved into the flesh, causing the bulge on Shu Bai's back to faintly emit a white light. Limbs and facial features began to differentiate from the holy embryo. Thus, after most of the day, a smooth person appeared on Shu Bai's back. It was said to be smooth because at this time, it not only did not have a single hair on its body. Even the wrinkles of the skin did not exist. It emitted a fair luster, as if it were carved from white jade. Next, is the last step. My spiritual consciousness far exceeds ordinary people, so this Brahma consciousness divine worm used to supplement mental consumption is not needed. Shu Bai focused a part of his will on the holy embryo on his back. Operating the holy blood transformation technique, in visualization, the holy embryo was undergoing earth-shattering changes in an instant. Bones were generated, and the originally limp holy embryo expanded and straightened up like an inflating balloon. Hair, nails, and skin on different parts of the body appeared in order. It was as if there was a sculpting master, quietly carving the originally bald flesh. The traces of the holy embryo belonging to a person became more and more intense. Not long after, on Shu Bai's back, the face that was like a mirror image suddenly opened its eyes. At the same time, the layers of flesh connecting the holy embryo to the main body fell off on their own. The holy embryo Shubai gently patted the main body on the shoulder and lightly landed on the ground. The double monthly ticket target is set at 10,000 votes plus 5 updates. Don't be afraid that you won't reach the goal. As long as you reach 2,000 votes, I will add one update. The double event lasts until May 7th, and the additional update rules are valid during the period. 779. Wanjun is unwilling. This feeling, Shubai couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Having to create clones in every lifetime, he had long been accustomed to multitasking. But at this moment, with the creation of this other holy embryo, almost equivalent to a third clone, a completely different feeling welled up in Shubai's heart. The miraculous profound true spirit transformation was derived from the open black lens bracket heaven-stealing sun-swapping art close black lens bracket. It could be said to be the most orthodox clone technique in the cultivation world. Both the main body and the clone were completely controlled by his own consciousness. In contrast, this open black lens bracket holy blood transformation embryo method close black lens bracket. Before the holy embryo separated from the mother's body, it was indeed like a part of his own body, controllable at will. But since it separated from him, it seemed to have undergone some mysterious change. It did indeed split off another consciousness within the holy embryo. He did indeed still have complete control over the holy embryo. But, he always felt that something was not right. The holy embryo turned around and met Shubai's eyes. It was as if there was a mirror between them, except that one was wearing clothes and the other was completely naked. From the outside, there was no difference between the two. But Shubai stared for a long time, and always felt that there was something uncoordinated between them. He suddenly remembered a scene from a horror movie he had seen before crossing over. Late at night, in the bathroom. After washing up, he inadvertently glanced at another self in the mirror. But he was horrified to find that the self in the mirror was suddenly giving him a strange smile. The thought flashed by. In reality, the holy embryo did not lose control and smile at him inexplicably. But looking at the holy embryo in front of him, a thought suddenly emerged in Shubai's mind. If the main body, Li Fan, were to die, then without a doubt, the clone, Shubai, would also die. But what about this holy embryo? Would it also die with him? The purpose of the open black lens bracket holy blood transformation embryo method close black lens bracket was to ensure the unbroken inheritance of the imperial family. So the answer was obvious. It would not. This is the essential difference between the holy embryo and the clone. Shubai suddenly realized. What Shaoqing said, almost no different from a clone. It's only almost. At the same time as understanding this, Li Fan, the main body far away in Tianquan province, who was in seclusion to comprehend the open black lens bracket limitless emptiness law close black lens bracket, couldn't help but stop his movements instantly. After replaying the entire journey of the clone to the Empire, an inexplicable expression appeared on his face. Interesting. As expected, I was still inevitably influenced by something. Looking back, from the perspective of the main body, the clone, Shubai's, choice was a little too hasty. Of course, this was still a decision made by Li Fan himself. However, being in different situations and environments, even the same person could very likely make completely opposite choices. What happened to Shubai was like this. If the main body had personally experienced this matter, facing the red rope and the open black lens bracket holy blood transformation embryo close black lens bracket, he would definitely study the red rope first, instead of first using the holy blood transformation embryo. Although he did indeed have the intention of using the holy blood transformation embryo to create another clone. But he would not be so hasty, but would be cautious and careful. Li Fan, who had figured everything out in an instant, still did not feel a sense of crisis in his heart. But he still felt a trace of unease. After weighing it for a long time, he couldn't help but have the idea of directly open black lens bracket returning to truth close black lens bracket. Do you want to virtualize the current scene and return to the original anchor point? The surrounding scene gradually became illusory, facing the prompt of returning to truth. Li Fan felt a trace of hesitation in his heart. He thought of the open black lens bracket limitless spirit emptiness law close black lens bracket that was hard to come by and had not yet been fully deciphered. He thought of the dissolving disk that had not yet been merged into one. He thought of not yet finding a way to completely shield the heavenly profound treasure mirror's perception using the terminal stone plate. He thought of not yet controlling the Medicine King True Cauldron to rush out of the Xuanwang realm and explore the immortal ruins. He thought of, if he left, he would really be reluctant. After hesitating for a long time, Li Fan was like a stone statue, completely still. With intense ideological struggles constantly in his mind, Li Fan's body began to tremble slightly. Do you want to virtualize the current scene and return to the original anchor point? The prompt of returning to truth came again. Li Fan's face was uncertain. But in the end, he chose no. In an instant, the originally virtualized scene became real again. And Li Fan, who made this choice, seemed to have experienced a great battle in an instant. Almost weakly slumped to the ground, his whole body soaked in sweat. However, his body's instinct made Li Fan dissatisfied with the decision he had made. Without resting for long, after gaining a slight chance to breathe, Li Fan opened the returning to truth panel again. Do you want to virtualize the current scene and return to the original anchor point? The prompt of returning to truth still sounded reliably. But it no longer sounded so pleasant in Li Fan's ears. People do anything driven by desire. And at this moment, Li Fan, who opened the returning to truth panel for the second time, the desire to return to truth, was a few points weaker than before. All kinds of hesitations, concerns, and reluctance came one after another. This time, he struggled for less time. Li Fan finally closed the returning to truth panel. Huff, as if losing all the strength in his body in an instant. Li Fan slumped directly on the ground, panting heavily. After a long time, barely supporting his body with his hands, a strange emotion flashed in Li Fan's eyes. He began his third attempt. The result was obvious. This time, his decision-making speed was even faster. In just a few breaths, he closed the returning to truth panel. Xuanwang Immortal Heart Curse. For the fourth time, Li Fan silently activated this supreme immortal technique that had repeatedly saved him from danger. But he, who possessed the Immortal Heart Curse, exited on his own the moment he opened the returning to truth panel. Even before those many fettered things had time to interfere. The Immortal Heart Curse is formed by reversing the Tao heart of a cultivator. Now, Li Fan wants to return to truth to avoid disaster. Under the operation of the Immortal Heart Curse, the thought of returning to truth instantly turned into nourishment for strengthening the divine sense. Li Fan, who had failed again, stood in the secret room, silent for a long time. At this moment, Li Fan encountered the most dangerous situation since crossing over. Because he had been setting up this world for a long time, and it was not yet time to harvest. Therefore, many, reluctant, emotions were produced. Under the influence of some kind of force, this emotion was magnified to the extreme, making him actually voluntarily unwilling to return to truth. Even at this moment, Li Fan still felt that there was nothing wrong with himself. It's just that he was a little too greedy. But Li Fan was, after all, afraid of death. He, who had a firm obsession with longevity, also realized it. If he could not return to truth, then in this crisis-ridden Xuanwang realm, there was indeed a risk of falling at any time. Annihilation. 780. Half a day, the golden elixir is full. Li Fan stood in the secret chamber, silent for a long time, pondering countermeasures. Now that he had calmed down, he wasn't particularly flustered. After all, he was far from being in a desperate situation. The myriad beings of the Xuanwang realm only had one chance at life, a true return to nothingness. He had merely returned to the same starting point as everyone else. Moreover, he still possessed the advantage of vast prescience accumulated from his previous reincarnations. Everything originated from a fleeting thought back then. While creating the doppelganger with Shu Kei's essence and blood, I incorporated a wisp of Mr. Bai's aura. Li Fan quickly pondered. He soon identified the source of his various anomalies. Indeed, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Relying on my resemblance to Mr. Bai, I gained unparalleled talent and comprehended some divine abilities. What I got in return was his subtle contamination of the doppelganger, and even the original body. Although I became vigilant when I noticed something was wrong, I was prepared to revert to nothingness immediately if I detected any influence on the original body. But what I didn't anticipate was that by the time the original body realized this, it was already too late. In Li Fan's mind, that stunning, perfect face instantly reappeared. Mr. Bai, interesting. You want to use me to be reborn? Then I'll grant your wish. A glint flashed in Li Fan's eyes. The stone of transformation, already overloaded in his mind, suddenly erupted with blue light once more. Countless images flashed within it. Those were Li Fan deducing various possibilities for the future. You want to hinder my path? It's not that simple. Suddenly, the light of the stone of transformation extinguished completely. But Li Fan had already devised a countermeasure. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Li Fan's mouth as he slowly sat down, unhurriedly resuming his efforts to decipher the data of the limitless spiritual void art. The scene shifted back to Shu Bai's side. Sharing a glance with the sacred embryo, both revealed a strange smile. Shu Bai gently pointed at the red string in front of him. Go. The red string seemed to come alive, flying straight towards the sacred embryo. At the same time, Shu Bai took out a pile of top-grade spirit stones from his storage ring and shattered them with a palm strike. The offspring or doppelgangers produced by the sacred blood transformation art had no cultivation. But this was not a problem for the sacred embryo Shu Bai. His aptitude was exactly the same as Shu Bai's, reaching an unimaginable level. Not to mention, he also possessed the cultivation experience accumulated by Li Fan over so many reincarnations. Absorb the spirit of heaven and earth, to control its energy. The sacred embryo Shu Bai slowly chanted. A formless whirlwind seemed to sweep through the secret chamber. Substantial, dense spiritual energy emitted bursts of whistling sounds, swarming towards the sacred embryo Shu Bai. In just a few breaths, he broke the boundary between mortals and cultivators, successfully stepping into the early stage of qi refining. The speed of absorbing spiritual energy did not decrease in the slightest, but instead became faster. The doppelganger Shu Bai was expressionless, repeating the process of taking out top-grade spirit stones, shattering them, and taking out top-grade spirit stones again. If it were an ordinary cultivator, absorbing so much spiritual energy in a short period of time, their body would have exploded long ago. But the sacred embryo Shu Bai was like a bottomless pit. His expression remained unchanged, swallowing as much spiritual energy as came, absorbing it all into his dantian. His realm was also climbing upwards at a speed visible to the naked eye. Qi refining mid-stage, qi refining late stage, qi refining completion. The calamity of heaven that plagued countless cultivators in the world seemed to not exist at all on the sacred embryo Shu Bai. The doppelganger Shu Bai also saw for the first time the terrifying cultivation speed of a truly top-talent new method cultivator without the hindrance of bottlenecks. Borrow the wonders of heaven and earth, to build the foundation. The sacred embryo Shu Bai chanted again. In his dantian, Mr. Bai's red string emitted a faint glow. Without the slightest obstruction, it was a natural progression. In just a breath, the sacred embryo Shu Bai successfully established his foundation. The faint red string dissolved into his dantian, transforming into his Tao foundation. Therefore, he also knew its true name. Heaven's will sword. If there is a will of heaven, it should be the same as mine. Wonderful. The sacred embryo Shu Bai and the doppelganger Shu Bai said in unison. Entering the foundation establishment stage, the sacred embryo Shu Bai did not stop his cultivation. He still continuously absorbed the dense, pure spiritual energy in the secret chamber. His cultivation realm also climbed rapidly and steadily. Foundation establishment stage, still without the slightest bottleneck. Foundation establishment mid-stage, foundation establishment late stage, foundation establishment completion. Peer into the laws of heaven and earth, to refine the golden core. The sacred embryo Shu Bai stood with his hands behind his back. Muttering to himself, he opened his mouth and inhaled, and the dense spiritual energy in the secret chamber, which was about to condense into liquid, was instantly emptied. He simply took a storage ring full of spirit stones handed over by the doppelganger Shu Bai, and held it in his hand. In his dantian, the red light slowly solidified. My will is the will of heaven, my heart is the heart of heaven. The sacred embryo Shu Bai naturally spoke slowly, as if a world-shaking explosion had occurred. The red light spread throughout the dantian, then suddenly contracted to the extreme. After a moment, a red dot floated in the sacred embryo Shu Bai's dantian. The sacred embryo Shu Bai entered the golden core realm. In such a short period of time, he completed what ordinary cultivators could only accomplish in dozens or even hundreds of years. He still did not stop his cultivation. With the spiritual energy supply uninterrupted, the sacred embryo Shu Bai advanced towards the golden core completion. Unsurprisingly, there was still no calamity of heaven appearing. The Xuanwang realm's heavenly Tao's double standard was evident. And when the sacred embryo Shu Bai finally successfully advanced to the golden core completion realm, only half a day had passed since he was formally created. Is this Mr. Bai's cultivation speed? No, Mr. Bai back then was even faster. A mortal transforming into a god in an instant. In the secret chamber, the sacred embryo Shubai and the doppelganger Shubai asked and answered each other. After a long silence, the doppelganger Shubai slightly shook his head. In today's Xuanhuang realm, half a day to golden core is the limit. The sacred embryo Shubai nodded in agreement, sees the essence of heaven and earth, to form the nascent soul. Without prior preparation, even with the highest talent, it is impossible to advance even an inch further. As the saying goes, the sacred embryo Shubai cupped his hands towards the doppelganger Shubai, and left with a dashing stride. There is no immortal path to tread ahead, the law-transmitting heavenly lord is above. His figure had already disappeared, but his voice echoed in the secret chamber, lingering for a long time. The doppelganger Shubai knew that the sacred embryo Shubai had gone out to find the opportunity to form the nascent soul. Perhaps for other cultivators, this process would inevitably be extremely difficult. But for the sacred embryo Shubai, it was just an easy task. He didn't even need to worry about the sacred embryo Shubai's safety. Although he was only at the golden core completion realm now, even a transformation god cultivator might not be his opponent. Because, my heart is the heart of heaven,